Chapter 1063. Luo Qingtong would never be courteous to those who dared to lay their hands on her. Did these people really think that she was a prisoner? Luo Qingtong sneered. With a wave of her sleeve, she walked towards the elders of the Holy Academy. She already had a premonition that someone was trying to deal with her. Boss. Seeing Luo Qingtong walking towards the elders of the Holy Academy, Su Xiaoxiao and the others quickly followed. They didn't believe that Luo Qingtong would use sorcery. With the latter's strength and ability, how could she need to use sorcery to win against Yuanma? Knowing Luo Qingtong's identity and strength, Su Xiaoxiao's people didn't believe a word of the Holy Academy's law enforcement team. However, it was true that someone was trying to deal with Luo Qingtong. They didn't know who was so vicious. They actually framed their boss with such a crime. It was really hateful. Su Xiaoxiao and the others thought and immediately gritted their teeth. After they left, the people of the Qingwei group also looked at each other for a while. They didn't expect that when they came to apologize, they would run into such a thing. Luo Qingtong used sorcery to deal with Yuanma? This crime was not an ordinary one. If it was true, then Luo Qingtong would definitely be crippled. They looked at the girl next to them who was like a willow tree. Senior sister? They looked at her inquisitively. Let's go and take a look together. Yu Qingwei pondered for a moment and said. Then she said to a member of the Qingwei group, go and inform His Highness the Crown Prince that something happened to Luo Qingtong. Tell him to hurry to the elders of the Holy Academy. Let's go. Yu Qingwei didn't have much interaction with Luo Qingtong, but the girl didn't look like someone who would use sorcery. There might be something going on. Thinking of how Ma Chenyi protected her, Yu Qingwei thought for a while and decided to take people to take a look. The elders of the Holy Academy supported Mo Chunxian. For the sake of Ma Chenyi, Yu Qingwei naturally couldn't just watch and do nothing. What's more, after this gambling battle, Luo Qingtong did not continue to pursue the matter of the Qingwei group. Yu Qingwei still owed her a favor. With that thought in mind, she immediately said to the Qingwei group member, also inform the Grand Dean. Let him know about it. After explaining everything, Yu Qingwei and the others immediately headed towards the Holy Institute's elders. At the same time, in the Elders Guild of the Sacred Academy, Su Deheng and Shen Qiuyue were already waiting there. Beside them sat Mo Chunxian, whose face was full of joy. I didn't expect Great Teacher to change his mind and not let go of Luo Qingtong. This is exactly what I want. Mo Chunxian smiled and said to Su Deheng. He also greeted Shen Qiuyue respectfully. Shen Qiuyue was the person he had been trying to win over. If he had her support, he wouldn't be afraid of losing to Ma Chenyi in the imperial court. She was the external deacon of the Celestial Palace. The latter had been the crown prince for a long time. So what if he had a lot of power and connections? As long as Shen Qiuyue supported him, he could pull the other party down from the throne before his strength surpassed Ma Chenyi's. Mo Chunxian was so close to Yuanma before because of this. And not long ago, Shen Qiuyue told him coldly that she would support him to fight for the throne. Thinking of this, Mo Chunxian suddenly smiled proudly. Speaking of which, he had to thank Luo Qingtong. If Ma Chenyi hadn't been on good terms with her and protected her in every way possible, how could Shen Qiuyue support him to fight for the throne so easily? Chapter 1064. Thinking of this, Mo Chunxian felt indescribably happy. He said to Su Deheng and Shen Qiuyue, since you two hate Luo Qingtong so much, why don't you send her to me for training? He smiled viciously and said, it just so happens that I also have some grudges against her. I have plenty of people under me who can teach her a lesson and make her wish she was dead. I don't need to dirty your hands. Okay. Shen Qiuyue sneered. Then I'll leave her to you. I will take Jinyue to see what kind of miserable situation she is in at that time. Su Deheng also sneered and nodded. Killing Luo Qingtong directly was certainly not better than torturing her and then killing her. Anyway, as long as it was confirmed that she used witchcraft. Who knew what would happen to her after she was expelled from the hospital? Even if she was kidnapped by them, no one would know. At that time, they would see how miserable Luo Qingtong was, which could be regarded as revenge for Jinyue and Yuan Mo. In the seats of the elders of the Sacred Academy, the first elder of the Sacred Academy and others also looked cold. Humph, I didn't expect that Luo Qingtong would have such a day. The people of the elders of the Sacred Academy hated Luo Qingtong no less than Su Deheng and Mo Chenxian. Since they were slapped in the face by Luo Qingtong when they tried to expel her from the hospital, they were completely excluded from the core of the Sacred Academy. All the core of the Sacred Academy was controlled by the Grand Dean's faction. Not only that, they also became the laughingstock of the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin. When they heard that Su Deheng and others sued Luo Qingtong for using witchcraft, they immediately sent people to catch Luo Qingtong. Not only that, they also had the same idea as Mo Chenxian. The latter wanted to lead the matter to Ma Chenyi. They wanted to shift the blame onto the Grand Supreme Dean. After all, how could someone like Luo Qingtong, who came from an inferior country, come into contact with things like witchcraft? Naturally, someone had given it to her. What kind of person was that? The group of elders from the Holy Academy sneered. The biggest possibility was evil Dr. Ghost Eye. But who would find trouble with her? They would only put this hat on the Grand Supreme Dean's head. As for evidence, wouldn't it be easy to forge? As long as they could confirm that Luo Qingtong had indeed used sorcery, they could guarantee that the Grand Principal would not be able to get away with it. Apart from that, there was also the Crown Prince. By then he would be able to kill 3 birds with 1 stone. And the matter would be resolved perfectly. As for the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, as long as she wasn't an idiot, she wouldn't jump out and say that she was the one who gave him the sorcery. What's more, he might not even know about this. By the time she found out, the matter had already been settled. As the group of people thought about this, they all began to laugh coldly. He calmly waited for Luo Qingtong's arrival. At this moment, Luo Qingtong might have been escorted here with a disheveled look. The first elder of the Holy Academy and others sneered. They specially told the law enforcement team of the Holy Academy to come here in a disheveled and humiliating way. Just when this group of people was thinking about this, bang! The door of the Elders' Academy of the Holy Academy was suddenly kicked open. Then, a figure was kicked in from the outside. Ah! Hearing the person's painful cry and the figure rolling in, the group of Elders' Academy of the Holy Academy showed a trace of satisfaction and sneer on their faces. Was Luo Qingtong kicked in? The group of people thought calmly. Chapter 1065. Because they suddenly realized that something was wrong with the cry. It didn't seem to be a woman's voice, but a man's. Thinking of this, they immediately raised their eyes and looked ahead. With one look, their faces were instantly filled with rage. Luo Qingtong. What do you mean by this? At the front gate, the golden bronze door was wide open. The figure who was kicked in was lying on the ground. A figure dressed in fiery red clothes suddenly walked in from the gate and stepped on the figure. Only then did the elders of the Sacred Academy see clearly that the red figure was Luo Qingtong. And the figure under her foot was the member of the law enforcement team they sent to catch Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong. Seeing that the scene before them was completely different from what they had imagined, the group of elders from the Sacred Academy was infuriated. You're too arrogant. The crowd shouted angrily. This woman had already been exposed for using sorcery, but she still dared to be so arrogant and wanton. Did she really think that they wouldn't dare to do anything to her? Or did she think that the Grand Dean would be able to protect her? Unfortunately, she was wrong. Not to mention her, even the Grand Dean would be in trouble today. Facing the anger of the elders of the Sacred Academy, Luo Qingtong looked indifferent. She looked at them with a sneer and said, "Elders, what do you think is not arrogant?" As she spoke, she kicked the figure of the law enforcement team away with a sneer. She had just said that if anyone dared to touch her again, she would cripple them. But they still dared to do it. Did they think that she wouldn't dare to do anything to them at the elders of the Sacred Academy? Luo Qingtong's face was cold. Her eyes swept over the law enforcement team members who came in behind her. First elder. Elders. The law enforcement team members limped in while supporting each other. They looked at Luo Qingtong with fear and resentment. Especially the leader of the law enforcement team. This woman dared to cripple them. And in front of the elders of the Sacred Academy. How dare she? His expression was one of shock and fury. He was the one who had ordered the law enforcement team member to sneak attack Luo Qingtong. She had thought that Luo Qingtong would not dare to make a move after arriving here, since she was so fierce. However, she didn't expect that she would directly cripple the law enforcement team member, who had just made a move. The leading member of the law enforcement team was about to pounce on him. After Luo Qingtong made her move, he didn't dare to move. Great elders, you must uphold justice for us. The group of people knelt on the ground and cried. We were ordered to capture her, but she beat us up. Elders, Luo Qingtong is completely ignoring the rules of the Holy Academy and the Elders Association. The group of people knelt on the ground and cried. The members of the Elders Association of the Sacred Academy looked at the group of law enforcement team members who limped in from outside and almost fainted in an instant. It turned out that Luo Qingtong not only beat up a law enforcement team member of the Sacred Academy, but also beat up all the people they had sent. How dare she? Luo Qingtong, you've gone too far. You've despised the Elders Association and ignored the rules of the Sacred Academy. Guards! The members of the Elders Association of the Sacred Academy flew into a rage. They were about to call people to arrest Luo Qingtong. Chapter 1066. Luo Qingtong's voice sounded. That's because they deserve to be beaten. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. She stood in the middle of the hall of the elders of the Sacred Academy and slowly walked to the front of the members of the law enforcement team. She lifted her leg with a sneer and kicked the leader of the law enforcement team out with a bang. Luo Qingtong. Before the members of the elders of the Sacred Academy could do anything, Luo Qingtong's cold voice sounded. Since the elders want to talk about the rules with me, then I'll talk about the rules with you. I'm still a student of the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin. Before I'm expelled from the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin, these members of the law enforcement team have no right to beat me up. Luo Qingtong sneered and flicked her sleeves. According to the rules of the Sacred Academy, if they beat me up, I'm qualified to fight back. Beat them up? Luo Qingtong lifted her leg and kicked another member of the law enforcement team out. That's because they deserve to be beaten up. Luo Qingtong had long known that the members of the elders of the Sacred Academy were up to no good. Why did they send people to catch her? Why? Even if someone accused her of using witchcraft, before she was officially expelled from the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin, she was still a student of the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin. These members of the law enforcement team dared to beat her up, let alone beat them up. Even if she beat them to death, what could the members of the elders of the Sacred Academy do to her? Did they really think that she was a little girl who had never seen the world? She would be beaten up by the members of the law enforcement team, just because she was a little frightened by the complaint? Luo Qingtong's words instantly made the members of the elders of the Sacred Academy speechless. Previously, they had indeed thought that Luo Qingtong would be scared silly by this battle, and wanted to teach her a lesson in advance. At the same time, they could also vent their resentment from being humiliated by her previously. They thought that Luo Qingtong wouldn't dare to fight back. He didn't expect her to be so bold and so meticulous. At this time, he had already been exposed for using sorcery, yet he still dared to be so high-profile and arrogant. Good. All right. Everyone was so angry that their hearts hurt. They gritted their teeth and sneered at her. You're right this time. Luo Qingtong, the law enforcement team of the Sacred Academy attacked you. You didn't do anything wrong by fighting back. As the group of people spoke, their hearts were filled with hatred. Just bear with her for now. Once she was convicted of the crime, she would suffer a fate worse than death. She had to return all the slaps to her face. With that thought in mind, the group of elders of the Sacred Academy wanted to drag the members of the enforcement team away. The latter and the others had failed to complain, and were beaten instead. Their faces were filled with dejection, and they no longer dared to make a sound. He was about to leave with his tail between his legs. Luo Qingtong opened her mouth. Wait, have I finished talking about this? Luo Qingtong looked at them coldly. Luo Qingtong, what are you trying to do? This is the elders of the Sacred Academy. It's not a place where you can behave atrociously. The group of elders of the Sacred Academy was instantly furious. Were they trying Luo Qingtong or were they trying Luo Qingtong? Luo Qingtong had gone too far. They attacked me. Shouldn't they be punished? How could Luo Qingtong be so easy to deal with? The people of the elders of the Sacred Academy were already coming for her. In this case, it didn't matter whether they shed all pretense of cordiality or not. She wasn't the kind of person who would suffer losses. These people wanted to attack her and put her on trial? Fine. Let's wait until she was done. Let's take care of everything. Chapter 1067. Didn't you already beat them up to this state? Isn't this a lesson? The elders of the Sacred Academy were almost angered to death by Luo Qingtong. She had beaten up the law enforcement team sent by them, and now she was still talking to them? What else did she want? Luo Qingtong, they attacked you, and you have already fought back. This matter is now even. The elders of the Sacred Academy said coldly. Even. Luo Qingtong looked at them with a faint smile. Su Xiaoxiao and the others had already caught up with her at this time. When they saw Luo Qingtong standing alone in the hall of the elders of the Sacred Academy and confronting the members of the elders of the Sacred Academy, they immediately rushed over and stood behind her, expressing their support for her with practical actions. Luo Qingtong glanced at them from the corner of her eyes and suddenly felt a wave of warmth and comfort in her heart. She raised her hand, and a chair not far away was instantly pulled over by her. After placing the chair behind her, Luo Qingtong flicked her sleeves and sat on it. She looked up at the elders of the Sacred Academy, who were so angered by her actions that they were dizzy and were about to scold her. She raised her hand and took out a token. She fiddled with the token in her hand, then looked up and smiled. As a student of the Heavenly Palace, they are indeed even with me. But as a holder of the Saint token, they attacked me, which is an offense against their superiors. After being beaten up, they should be punished more severely. Otherwise, where will the rules of the Sacred Academy exist? Where will the dignity of the Sacred Academy exist? The words that the elders of the Sacred Academy had scolded Luo Qingtong before were all returned by her. Luo Qingtong beckoned Yuan Hu and the others to press all the law enforcement team members to the ground. Cripple them. Her voice was cold. These law enforcement team members were ordered by the elders of the Sacred Academy to arrest her, but they secretly wanted to humiliate her. They even wanted to plot against her. And then they complained in front of the elders of the Sacred Academy. Did they think that she didn't see their resentful eyes just now? Luo Qingtong sneered. Since they hated her so much, it didn't matter if they hated her more. Luo Qingtong was not the kind of person to be unforgiving, but if they were courting death, then she didn't mind fulfilling their wish. Saint token. Looking at the thing in Luo Qingtong's hand, the elders of the Sacred Academy were shocked and then furious. The Grand Principal actually gave such a thing to Luo Qingtong. What a bastard! What did he take the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin? His personal territory? Even something like a saint token could be given away so casually? The elders of the Sacred Academy's TT, especially the first elder of the Sacred Academy. He originally thought that using such a despicable method to pull down the Grand Principal and the others wasn't good. But now, looking at the saint token in Luo Qingtong's hand, he was so angry that he trembled all over. He wished he could drive Din and the others out of the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin right now. However, they didn't know that the saint token in Luo Qingtong's hand had nothing to do with Din at all. They were the spoils of war that she had obtained after defeating Saint Meng. Din had wanted to take it back, but he didn't succeed. Now that Luo Qingtong took out the saint token, these law enforcement team members made a big mistake by attacking her. Bang bang bang. Chapter 1068. Amid the shrill screams, the members of the law enforcement team were rolling on the ground. Their hearts were filled with regret. If they had known that provoking Luo Qingtong would lead to such a result, they would never have attacked her in order to curry favor with the elders of the Sacred Academy. It had nothing to do with them at all. It was the elders of the Sacred Academy who wanted to deal with Luo Qingtong. They only needed to bring her to the Sacred Academy. It was too late for them to regret. No one had expected that Luo Qingtong would have the Sacred Academy token. The latter had never been revealed and had never been taken out. They were in pain and regretful. The shrill screams almost resounded throughout the hall of the elders of the Sacred Academy. Hearing these ear-piercing screams, the members of the Council of Elders of the Sacred Institute turned pale. Luo Qingtong's slap was very loud. They had sent these people to catch Luo Qingtong, but now they were crippled in front of them. And they couldn't do anything to Luo Qingtong. The group of people gritted their teeth so hard that the sound of grinding could be heard. Luo Qingtong, how are you? You're doing very well. The elders of the Sacred Academy pointed at her, their faces full of ferocity and anger. Of course I'm doing very well. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent as she squinted her eyes. These people wanted to deal with her? It was ridiculous. She was sure that the one who would be punished later would not be her. Well, didn't the elders of the Sacred Academy come to me to talk about cheating? We can start now. Luo Qingtong raised her hand and flicked her sleeves. Her face was indescribably careless, as if she didn't take the elders of the Sacred Academy seriously at all. The girl's face was gorgeous, delicate, enchanting, and domineering. Sitting on the wide chair like this, his aura instantly overwhelmed the group of elders of the Holy Academy opposite him. People who didn't know better would think that the people who were waiting for trial were the elders of the Sacred Academy. Looking at Luo Qingtong's domineering and careless appearance, the elders of the Sacred Academy gnashed their teeth even louder. Luo Qingtong, wait and see. She would regret it later. The elders of the Sacred Academy inhaled and exhaled again and again, and finally calmed down. If they couldn't calm down, they would probably faint on the spot. Good. Good. They said coldly. Let's start. The rhythm of the elders of the Sacred Academy was smashed by Luo Qingtong's unconventional moves. They were going to punish Luo Qingtong directly, and then snorted and let her to confess the matter. In this way, they could vent their anger and see Luo Qingtong in a sorry state. Then, they could finally beat her to the bottom of the mud. But the result? The elders of the Sacred Academy looked at Luo Qingtong, who was sitting comfortably on the chair. The word start was incomparably sullen and gloomy. The Seoul Institute's great teacher and the others also stared sullenly at the scene. This is that Luo Qingtong. Shin Qiuyue looked at Luo Qingtong, who was sitting on the wide chair, and said with a serious expression. When Luo Qingtong arrived, they were prepared to see a joke. In the end, they saw a joke. However, it wasn't the joke of Luo Qingtong that they had imagined. Instead, it was the joke of the elders of the Sacred Academy, who had been humiliated to the point that they wished they were dead. Shin Qiuyue, who saw Luo Qingtong for the first time, finally understood why her husband, daughter, and Yuan Ma had suffered so much at the hands of Luo Qingtong. She was indeed not ordinary. But so what? Chapter 1069. Shin Qiuyue's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Luo Qingtong also looked over at Su Deheng and the others after the elders of the Sacred Academy spoke. When she saw Shin Qiuyue's murderous gaze, she suddenly narrowed her eyes. Who was the other party? She looked up slightly and glanced at the position and distance between Su Deheng and Shin Qiuyue. She suddenly guessed the relationship between the two. If she guessed correctly, the other party should be Su Jinyue's mother? As expected, they were a family. Were they here to seek revenge from him? When Luo Qingtong came, she had already guessed that Su Deheng and Mo Chunxian were probably behind this. Now it seemed that it was indeed so. However, Su Jinyue's mother was also involved in this matter. It was said that the wife of the Seoul Institute's great teacher had an extraordinary status. Su Jinyue relied on their love and care to be very arrogant in the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin. Almost no one dared to provoke her. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes slightly. At this moment, the people from the Qingwei group arrived. Junior sister Luo. Yu Qingwei led her people to Luo Qingtong's side, and saw the latter sitting on a wide chair with a relaxed and comfortable look. She was instantly stunned. Why was this not the scene she had imagined? Yu Qingwei's expression was blank. She thought that she would see Luo Qingtong being targeted when she came over. She had originally planned to bring the people from the Qingwei group to block for Luo Qingtong if the elders of the Sacred Academy went too far. But now what was going on? The group was a little confused. However, Yu Qingwei still subconsciously led the people from the Qingwei group to stand on Luo Qingtong's side. Senior sister Qingwei. Luo Qingtong was also a little surprised to see the people from the Qingwei group. She didn't expect Yu Qingwei to bring the people from the Qingwei group here, although she had left in front of the Qingwei group. However, in such a situation, wouldn't most people be wise enough to protect themselves? Junior sister Luo, don't be afraid. Yu Qingwei's lips couldn't help but twitch. Luo Qingtong didn't look scared at all. Her lips twitched as she continued, I've already informed His Highness the Crown Prince and the Grand Principal. The two of them should be here soon. Yu Qingwei had just finished speaking when Ma Chenyi and the Grand Principal appeared outside the door at the same time. The two of them were followed by a group of people. They were in a hurry as they strode into the hall. Qingtong, girl, are you all right? The Grand Principal took a step forward and rushed in front of Luo Qingtong. Nothing must happen to this girl. Otherwise, that fiend Yi Qianxian would tear down the empire of Qin's Holy Academy. And it was the kind that couldn't be stopped. The Grand Principal's figure was anxious and Ma Chenyi wasn't much better behind him. He stepped through the door with a heavy expression. After seeing that Luo Qingtong was safe and sound, his expression relaxed a little. Whether it was in terms of justice or personal relations, he didn't want to see anything happen to Luo Qingtong. First Elder, why did your Elders' Council attack Luo Qingtong? Ma Chenyi's voice was cold and dignified. His gaze swept over the members of the law enforcement team who were wailing on the ground, and his expression instantly darkened. His expression was sullen. At this moment, the might of the Crown Prince of the Empire of Qin was fully displayed. Chapter 1070. They attacked Luo Qingtong? It was Luo Qingtong who attacked them, okay. That group of law enforcement team members were disabled by her. The group of people stared at Ma Chenyi and others, speechless for a long time. However, Mo Chunxian and others looked at the arrival of Grandine and Ma Chenyi and smiled coldly. It seems that everyone is here. Mo Chunxian chuckled and stood up. He looked at Ma Chenyi and said, Brother, you don't have to complain for Luo Qingtong. She's fine. It's the law enforcement team members who are in trouble. However, Grandine even gave the saint token to Luo Qingtong to play with. This protection is really rare. However, although you have a good relationship with Luo Qingtong, it's not right to cheat for her and find sorcery for her to attack you in Mo. What do you mean? Ma Chenyi came in a hurry. The member of the Qingwei group who came to report only said that something happened to Luo Qingtong, but did not say what happened. Ma Chenyi came in a hurry. Now it seemed that Ma Chenyi and others actually accused Luo Qingtong of using sorcery. Moreover, he had even plotted against him and the Grand Supreme Dean. Thinking of this, Ma Chenyi's heart suddenly froze. No wonder he found out that Mo Chunxian was investigating Luo Qingtong. He originally wanted to remind the latter, but he did not expect that before he could do it, the other party attacked. Brother, you should understand what I mean. And Grandine, you should also understand. Mo Chunxian smiled sinisterly. He looked indifferent and looked at Ma Chenyi and Grandine calmly. Today, these two people, neither of them could escape. They would all be unlucky together with Luo Qingtong. It was a pity that Yi Luo was not here. Otherwise he would also be dealt with. Mo Chunxian thought and smiled coldly. Grandine stood beside Luo Qingtong. After seeing that the latter was fine, he immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Then he heard Mo Chunxian say that he gave the saint token to Luo Qingtong to play with. In an instant he almost could not breathe. That saint token was not given by him. He was wronged. The Grand Supreme Headmaster felt a wave of depression in his heart. He didn't realize that his focus had deviated. But Ma Chenyi's face was cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Luo Qingtong used sorcery to cheat. How could this be possible? Knowing that Luo Qingtong was the princess of Chu, Mo Chunxian didn't believe it at all. I knew that you would not admit it. Fortunately, we were prepared. As Mo Chunxian spoke, he threw out the information he had found about Luo Qingtong. Of course, Luo Qingtong was the great Qin Empire's princess. He did not find out. At this moment, he raised his head slightly and looked at Ma Chenyi coldly. Here is all the information about Luo Qingtong's cultivation, strength and talent. Luo Qingtong, Can you explain how you could have the same ice soul seal as UNMO and use the same soul skill as him during the gambling battle? You are just an ordinary martial artist and have never shown any soul seal talent. Besides, the soul seal formed by the cold air in UNMO's body is different from other ice soul seals. Even if you really have an ice soul seal, it is absolutely impossible to use UNMO's unique soul skill. Chapter 1071. Emo Chunxian sneered. He glanced at the girl who was sitting on the chair without any change in her expression. Luo Qingtong looked at him indifferently. It turned out that Yi Qianxian said that Emo Chunxian and the others were investigating her just to set up this trap of cheating and using witchcraft to deal with her. Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. If so, Emo Chunxian and the others found the wrong way. As Luo Qingtong thought so, Su Xiaoxiao and the others beside her were also surprised. It turned out that Emo Chunxian and the others caught their boss with great fanfare through the Elders Guild because of this. The group of people suddenly felt speechless. When they thought of the false soul seal on their bodies, they felt more confident about this trial. If Emo Chunxian and the others wanted to slander their boss through this, they would end up badly. It was a slap in the face. As the group of people thought about it, their hearts, which had been in their throats, were immediately put back at ease. On the contrary, Ma Chenyi and the Grand Dean were nervous after hearing Emo Qinshuan's words. They didn't believe that Luo Qingtong used witchcraft. They were afraid that Emo Chunxian and the others were so well prepared that Luo Qingtong couldn't defend herself. Oh no, the two couldn't help but feel nervous. Looking at their expressions, Emo Chunxian burst into laughter. Luo Qingtong and the others couldn't defend themselves. But it wouldn't end here. He sneered, threw the documents in his hand to the ground, and then said, "You can't say anything, right? Because you helped Luo Qingtong to practice witchcraft, so that she could attack Yuanma," he said coldly to Luo Qingtong. "Luo Qingtong, you hate Yuanma, so you didn't hesitate to destroy him. The collapse of the cold air in his body was the result of your witchcraft, right?" Emo Chunxian sneered. "After you disabled him, you said that he deserved it. Push the blame to him for being ungrateful in the past. In any case, UNMO is already crippled. He can't defend himself. Even if I try to defend myself, no one will listen. Everyone will only think that he's trying to slander you. It's a pity that you were too vicious and exposed yourself in the end," Emo Chunxian said righteously. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched at his words. Emo Chunxian really had a talent for telling stories. She almost believed the story. Hearing Emo Qinshuan's words, the elders of the Academy of Saint Academy, who had just been humiliated by Luo Qingtong, suddenly shouted angrily as if they had caught something that could be used against them. "Luo Qingtong, the evidence is here. What else do you have to say?" They raised their hands and pointed at the documents that Emo Chunxian threw out. "And the two of you, in order to protect Luo Qingtong, you actually found sorcery for her to cultivate. Especially you, Grand Dean. You helped Luo Qingtong to harm the students of the Saint Academy. What right do you have to be in charge of the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin?" The group of elders of the Sacred Institute said righteously. In an instant, behind the Grand Dean, the group of mentors who followed the Grand Dean changed their expressions. Obviously, the elders of the Saint Academy wanted to take this opportunity to get rid of the Grand Dean. Chapter 1072. The group of people's faces suddenly became serious. The expressions of the Dean and the others behind the Grand Dean also turned solemn. "Master." "Grand Dean." The group of people looked at the Grand Dean nervously. The Grand Dean also frowned. The situation was not good. These people not only wanted to deal with Luo Qingtong, but also he and Ma Chenyi were involved. The Grand Dean had no doubt that the other party had already done something to him and Ma Chenyi's mansion. The Grand Dean thought so, and so did Ma Chenyi. Behind him, the group of people who followed him suddenly became restless. At this moment, Ma Chenyi and the Grand Dean seemed to have fallen into the trap set by Emo Chunxian and the elders of the Saint Academy. Su Deheng and Xin Qiuyue sat there and looked at Luo Qingtong with a sneer. They didn't need to do anything at all. Emo Chunxian had already helped them to do it properly. Luo Qingtong would definitely not be able to get away this time. Even Ma Chenyi and the Grand Dean were in the same situation. Who asked them to shield and protect Luo Qingtong? Now they would be buried with her. The two of them laughed complacently. After the elders of the Saint Academy blamed Luo Qingtong, the Grand Dean, and Ma Chenyi, they immediately sent people to the place where they lived to search. Naturally, they searched a pile of letters and materials on behalf of them, looking for evil arts for Luo Qingtong to practice. Those things were thrown in front of Luo Qingtong, Ma Chenyi, and the Grand Dean. What else do you have to say? The elders of the Saint Academy asked. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and said, I have nothing to say. She usually only liked to fight. The Grand Dean and Ma Chenyi both frowned. Especially the Grand Dean. When he looked at Luo Qingtong, his eyebrows were tangled. He was almost like a fried dough twist. Hey, do you have a way to get out of here? If you can't, I'll send you out. The Grand Dean frowned as he spoke to Luo Qingtong. The matter this time was really too big. It was obvious that Su Deheng wanted to harm Luo Qingtong, and wanted to use Mo Chenxian to do it. The Grand Supreme Dean didn't care about the situation on his side. In any case, those people from the Elders Guild only wanted to seize his authority. But Luo Qingtong was different. If she really couldn't escape and something happened to her here, the Grand Supreme Dean didn't dare to imagine the consequences. No matter what, he had to make sure that she was fine. It's okay. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. Let them continue to play. Don't worry, I can turn the tables. As she spoke, she raised her eyes to look at Mo Chenxian, who was sitting with Su Deheng and the others, looking very smug. The latter was currently talking to Ma Chenyi. Brother, why are you so careless? Mo Chenxian looked at Ma Chenyi with a smile, and his words were full of pity and sarcasm. For a woman, you didn't hesitate to find sorcery for her to practice. As the Crown Prince of the Empire of Qin, your behavior is very inappropriate. It's okay that the Grand Supreme Dean is muddle-headed. Why can't you figure it out? As he spoke, he deliberately sighed heavily and said, If Father knows this, he will be very disappointed. Brother, why do you have to do this? Ma Chenyi looked at Mo Chenxian coldly and didn't speak. On the contrary, Yu Qingwei stood out at once. Mo Chenxian, you deliberately set up the Crown Prince. She looked sullen. She had been watching from the side just now. Chapter 1073. Senior Sister Qingwei, you have to be responsible for your words. The evidence here is conclusive. How can you say that I framed them? Mo Chenxian sneered at her. He didn't take Yu Qingwei and others seriously at all. Even if they knew that he framed Ma Chenyi and others, so what? There were witnesses and evidence. Unless Luo Qingtong could turn the tables, Ma Chenyi and Grand Supreme Dean would not be able to defend themselves. Who asked them to defend Luo Qingtong so much? If they wanted to blame someone, they should blame Luo Qingtong. If she didn't give them a chance, how could they lay their hands on Ma Chenyi and Grand Supreme Dean? Mo Chenxian said to Mo Chenxian. The person behind him said, If you know what's good for you, leave Ma Chenyi quickly. Otherwise, when you get out of here, you will be in trouble with him. When he said this, the group of people behind Ma Chenyi suddenly looked at each other. The latter was furious. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's voice sounded in his mind. Don't worry about him. Just treat it as a monkey show. Let him jump around. The girl's voice was faint. She didn't say anything, but inexplicably gave people a feeling of wanting to believe her. The anger in Ma Chenyi's heart disappeared instantly. His eyes lit up slightly, and an idea suddenly flashed through his mind. Could it be that Luo Qingtong had a way to deal with Mo Chenxian and others? He thought so, and his heart was full of expectation. When he looked at Mo Chenxian again, he was almost like a clown. Many of the people behind Ma Chenyi were swayed by Mo Chenxian's words. After swaying left and right for a while, many people stood out one after another. Your Highness, I'm sorry, some people said as they stepped away from Ma Chenyi and walked to Mo Chenxian. Your Highness King Wu. Those people bowed to Mo Chenxian. Haha, good. You follow me, and I won't treat you badly. Mo Chenxian looked at this scene, and was very happy in his heart. Finally one day, He could poach the people around Ma Chenyi. He wondered if Ma Chenyi would be heartbroken when he saw this scene. Mo Chunxian thought, and he was very proud. Seeing this scene, Grand Supreme Dean immediately said to the mentors behind him, "It seems that I'm going to be in trouble this time. If you want to leave, hurry up. Otherwise, if you miss this opportunity, there won't be another one." When he said these words, those mentors who followed him looked at each other for a while. Finally, a few people stood out with their heads lowered. "Dean, I'm sorry." After they left, they walked to Ma Chenyi's side to leave. After getting rid of the Grand Dean and Mo Chenyi, the elders of the Saint Academy, Mo Chunxian, and the others all focused on Luo Qingtong. "It's Luo you." The Machen elders of Ma Chenyi sneered at her. They all looked very unfriendly, and their eyes on Luo Qingtong were like knives. This woman was so arrogant just now, and now she fell into their hands? A group of people said coldly, "Luo Qingtong, you practice evil magic and you use it to deal with your peers of Machen Academy. You can't be forgiven. We're going to destroy your cultivation, arrest you, and punish you severely." When they said this, the group of people's gazes became abnormally sinister and vicious. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's voice suddenly sounded. Chapter 1074. Luo Qingtong, who had been silent all this time, raised her eyebrows and stood up. She looked at the elders of the Sacred Academy who were about to attack. The show was over. It was her turn. Today, she would let them know what it meant to be too late to regret. "You? Inf." The elders of the Sacred Academy looked at her and sneered. "Luo Qingtong, don't think that you can buy time for someone to save you. Are you waiting for the chief instructor of the Sacred Academy?" The group thought that they had seen through Luo Qingtong's plan. "However, if he can save you, what about the people around you?" The group sneered and threatened her. "I advise you not to play any tricks. Otherwise, the people around you won't have a good ending." The group was unspeakably fearless. Even if the other party had the supreme holy token, they were not afraid. "You are not qualified for me to play any tricks." Luo Qingtong snorted coldly. Only someone like Yi Qianxian who wanted to kill her was worthy of her careful escape. Just these people from the Council of Elders of the Holy Academy, they still wanted her to play tricks on them? They should see if they were qualified. How shameless. Luo Qingtong snorted disdainfully. "You." As they spoke, they were ridiculed once again. The people from the Elder Council of the Sacred Academy flew into a rage. Just as they were about to take her down, the Grand Dean stood in front of Luo Qingtong with the rest of the instructors behind him. "This girl is asking you a question. Did you not hear her? Are you deaf?" The Grand Supreme Dean's face was filled with anger and displeasure. "If she didn't use any sorcery, why did you touch her? Do you think we are dead?" As he spoke, Mo Chenyi led the only remaining supporters behind him, and stood in front of the elders of the Academy of the Saint Academy. "Elders, you'd better talk nicely." He flicked his sleeves coldly. "Otherwise, it won't be a good thing if you hurt me." Ma Chenyi was still the crown prince, the heir to the throne of the Empire of Qin. If the elders of the Sacred Academy hurt him, it would be interesting. The group was aggrieved and didn't know whether to advance or retreat. The last elder of the Sacred Academy said angrily, "Okay, we will give you a chance. Luo Qingtong, let's see what you can prove." "Idiot." The group of people looked very disdainful. So did Mo Chunxian and others. How could Luo Qingtong prove that she didn't practice sorcery? Ha! Yuan Ma was lying on the bed. She had used her opponent's unique soul skill to defeat him. Furthermore, according to the information he had gathered, she did not reveal any soul seal talent. In addition, the ice soul imprint in Yuan Mo's body was indeed very special. It was born from the cold energy in his body. Under such circumstances, they only believed in one thing. That was Luo Qingtong had indeed used an evil technique to steal the soul seal attribute from Yuan Ma's body. No matter what she said, it was impossible to prove that she did not practice any sorcery. The group of people was extremely complacent. Luo Qingtong looked at them indifferently and said, "You haven't said what will you do if I really prove it?" "What will you do?" The group of elders of the Sacred Academy sneered. If you can really prove that you don't practice sorcery, then we will kowtow to you and apologize. How many times have we slandered you? How many times have we slapped ourselves? How about that? Chapter 1075. Did Luo Qingtong want to use her goading method in front of them? Wasn't it just some conditions? They would satisfy her. Let's see what other tricks she could play. The group of elders of the academy had been tricked by Luo Qingtong. They felt that Luo Qingtong was deliberately provoking them to answer this question, so that they wouldn't dare to answer. Then she could justifiably stall for time and bring this topic to an end. Therefore, when the group of people spoke, they were very neat and tidy, without any sloppiness at all. Let's see what other excuses Luo Qingtong could come up with. While they were thinking, they heard Luo Qingtong say, "That's it." Luo Qingtong looked at them with a sneer. "Just now when you swore that I practiced black magic, you wanted to destroy my cultivation and force the Grand Dean and the others to leave. If I prove that I didn't practice black magic, you have to treat the Grand Dean like you treated him before, and get out of the Academy of the Empire of Qin. The Academy of Elders of the Academy will be completely disbanded. In addition, not only you, but all those who participated in slandering me will have to apologize to me, kneel down and kowtow. Do you dare to do it or not?" Okay. The group of people was furious by Luo Qingtong's words. This woman said it deliberately, didn't she? Did she think that they would be paranoid and afraid because of what she said? They didn't dare to agree? It was ridiculous. The group of people agreed without hesitation, and then said in a gloomy voice, "But if you can't prove it, then kneel down and destroy your cultivation. Save us the trouble." Okay. Luo Qingtong naturally agreed. The two sides were tit for tat. On the other side, Mo Chunxian also agreed to Luo Qingtong's conditions. In his opinion, whether Luo Qingtong really practiced black magic or not, it didn't matter. She couldn't find the evidence. Thinking of this, he suddenly sneered. However, just as he laughed, he heard Luo Qingtong say, "Come up and show them." "You? Who?" Mo Chunxian was stunned. He looked up and saw that Su Xiaoxiao and others stepped forward as Luo Qingtong spoke. Boom. They already knew how to break Mo Chunxuan's trap. Just now he and Luo Qingtong were watching the show from the side. At this moment, he simply raised his hand. With a boom, the few of them unleashed Yuanma's unique soul skill that Luo Qingtong had taught them. In an instant, there were a few explosions in the air of the hall. What? Everyone stared at this scene with their mouths agape. Even the Grand Principal and Ma Chenyi, who already knew beforehand that Luo Qingtong had a way to turn the tables, were shocked and stunned. Holy shit! Were these people trying to defy the heavens? The Grand Principal and others stared at Su Xiaoxiao and others with their eyes wide open. They didn't know about the others, but Su Xiaoxiao, Yuan Hu, Sima Ju, Ling Tianhan and the others couldn't have the ice attribute soul seal. Then how did they release the attack with the ice aura? Don't talk about using black magic. There were so many people. How many people's soul seal attributes would they need to rob? And these people's attribute strength was exactly the same. There was no difference. More importantly, the cold aura emitted by these people was exactly the same as Yuanma's. The latter's attribute soul seal was so special that Luo Qingtong could just rob it. Or could they find a few people who were exactly the same for Su Xiaoxiao to rob? Chapter 1076. The group of people was horrified in an instant. They looked at Su Xiaoxiao and the others in horror, with a look of disbelief as if they had seen a ghost. The people of the Elders Association of the Sacred Academy were even more shocked and speechless. Not to mention Mo Chunxian. He finally knew why Luo Qingtong said that she could prove that she didn't practice evil arts. The aura in Su Xiaoxiao and the others' bodies was the proof. They didn't practice evil arts, but they could have the same cold power as Yuanma and use the latter's unique soul skill. In this case, Luo Qingtong was immediately cleared of suspicion. Mo Chunxian and the people of the Elders Association of the Sacred Academy almost popped their eyes out. Especially Mo Chunxian. His words just now were so complacent. This was how shocking and unbelievable it was. How was this possible? He looked at the attacks released by Su Xiaoxiao and the others in disbelief, and almost staggered back and fell to the ground. Bang! As he retreated, he bumped into someone behind him and almost fell to the ground. And that person didn't react, just looked at Su Xiaoxiao and the others in front of him in shock. Luo Qingtong and the others turned the tables. In such an impossible situation, they turned the tables. Everyone stared with their eyes wide open. Mo Chunxian staggered to stand firm, and finally rushed to Su Xiaoxiao and hissed, "Impossible! How could you release Yuan Ma's unique soul skill and cold power? You must have used some means. Did he use some kind of special treasure?" His figure and voice were extremely disheveled. Mo Chunxian couldn't accept his failure. He was about to trample Ma Chenyi to the bottom of the valley. And the Grand Dean would also lose the control of the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin. Luo Qingtong would be in big trouble. In such a case, how could he lose? It was one thing for Luo Qingtong to be able to use Yuan Ma's unique soul skill. But how could Su Xiaoxiao and the others be able to use it as well? Luo Qingtong's method of asking Su Xiaoxiao and the others to prove themselves was even more inexplicable than her choosing someone on the spot and copying their soul skills. Everyone present could see it clearly. The special treasure that Mo Chunxian mentioned was impossible. Let's not talk about how such a special treasure was able to replicate Yuan Ma's unique soul imprint power. How could Su Xiaoxiao and the others have so many special treasures? It would be amazing to have even one. That was a treasure, not some cabbage that could be found on the roadside. And Luo Qingtong's next words confirmed their thoughts. Of course I have my own methods. If you think that this is not enough proof, I don't mind if you randomly choose another person and let them have the same cold power. Luo Qingtong's words were said casually, but everyone present was shocked. Luo Qingtong could let people have the power of the cold soul imprint at will. Such a shocking method, but she said it so casually. This was the power of the soul imprint. She could let people have it casually? Didn't that mean that as long as Luo Qingtong was willing, she could let anyone in the world become a soul personage? Even if the power of this soul personage could be controlled by her, but it was still a soul personage. My God! Everyone was shocked to the extreme. Chapter 1077. It's her. It must be her. If this means did not come from her, then it must be from Blackfield. But for so many years, this means had never been heard of. If it came from Blackfield, it was impossible that they had not heard of it at all. So this power must come from the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Oh my God! Thinking of that legendary reckless young man, that evil young man who created the fastest rising legend, but who was so mysterious that no one knew. Everyone was panting heavily in their hearts. No one did not want to have such a powerful means. But thinking of the Blackfield and the underworld venerable behind her, in an instant, the fire in everyone's heart seemed to be poured by a basin of cold water, and they did not have any other thoughts. And Luo Qingtong, who could be specially favored by the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, made them envious. She was really lucky. She actually had such a relationship with the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, and the latter helped her in various ways. While the others were envious, Mo Chunxian and the people of the Holy Academy's Elders Guild were so embarrassed that they could not even stand steadily. Since Luo Qingtong could say such words, it meant that she really had such confidence. So they had racked their brains, but in fact they had made a mistake? Luo Qingtong did not practice any sorcery at all, but got a kind of heaven-defying means, which could copy and use the power of other people's soul seals. Since it was not sorcery, they had no reason to judge Luo Qingtong at all. Those accusations and righteous words against Luo Qingtong, the Grand Dean, and Ma Chenyi just now looked extremely ridiculous. Just how confident were they before this? How badly their faces would be slapped. Thinking of the words they had just accused the Grand Dean and Ma Chenyi, the Elders Guild of the Holy Academy and Mo Chunxian felt a burning pain in their faces. No wonder Luo Qingtong did not say a word just now. This woman was simply laughing at them, to treat their performance as an act. Thinking about how they had become clowns for no reason, trying their best to deal with Luo Qingtong, Grand Dean, Mo Chenyi and the rest, but they were all treated as jokes. The elders of the Sacred Academy and Mo Qinshuan's eyes turned black. Was there anything more embarrassing than this? Su Deheng and Shen Qiuyue, who had been watching the development of the situation and waiting for Luo Qingtong and the others to be beaten to the bottom of the mud, also stood up abruptly with an unsightly expression and disbelief. Luo Qingtong actually has such means? Shen Qiuyue said in disbelief. It's not her, it must be that evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Su Deheng's expression was not much better than hers. The two of them looked at the beautiful girl who was surrounded by the crowd, and their hearts were filled with indescribable depression and hatred. Who would have thought that Luo Qingtong could turn the situation around like this? Originally, Su Deheng was 100% sure that Luo Qingtong must have practiced the evil arts to be able to make Yuanma become like this. All her performances were all in line with the conditions of practicing the evil arts. But who would have thought that Luo Qingtong had obtained the nature-defying means from evil Dr. Ghost Eye? It was through that means that Yuanma was defeated. And it also made him the laughingstock of the Empire of Qin for having eyes but failing to see. Thinking of this, Su Deheng was so angry that his heart ached. His gaze towards Luo Qingtong was filled with incomparable hatred. Chapter 1078. Elders, do you still remember what you said just now? I have proved my innocence. I didn't practice any sorcery. So, shouldn't you fulfill your promise? Luo Qingtong sneered and said, Please kneel down and apologize. By the way, don't stop the slapping. I'll ask someone to count it for you. How long has it been since you called me here? One slap for every breath. I'll wait. By the way, Your Highness King Wu. Luo Qingtong looked at Mo Chunxian and the elders of the Saint Academy with a smile. Their faces suddenly changed. The latter and the others felt extremely humiliated. But in this situation they had to kneel down. The Grand Dean Ma Chenyi and the others were watching. The elders of the Saint Academy and Mo Chunxian had humiliated them before. Now they were going to pay back all the humiliation. Elders, kneel down. The Grand Dean snorted coldly. They were all mentors of the Saint Academy. In fact, he didn't want to make things so ugly. But who asked the elders of the Saint Academy to be so aggressive? Thinking that if Luo Qingtong hadn't found a way to turn the situation around, he would have been slandered and driven out of the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. He snorted coldly. The evils they brought on themselves were the hardest to bear. These people had made the promise themselves, so they had to eat it themselves. The faces of the elders of the Sacred Academy were ashen. Under the gaze of the Grand Dean and the mentors, they slapped themselves in the face. In the loud slapping sound, Ma Chenyi and the people of the Good Yuan group looked at Mo Chunxian coldly and said, Brother, do you want to do it yourself? Or I'll ask someone to help you. Mo Chunxuan's face darkened. He pinched his palms hard and said, Brother, I'm King Wu of the Empire of Qin. You humiliated me in front of outsiders. Aren't you afraid that father will blame you? He tried to escape punishment. No matter how ridiculous the bet with Luo Qingtong was, it was Mo Chunxuan's personal behavior after all. Worst comes to worst, I'll just take it that he's crazy. But this time, if he had to kneel and apologize to Luo Qingtong and then slap himself in the face, it would be extremely damaging to the reputation of the imperial family of the Empire of Qin. Mo Chunxian tried to persuade Ma Chenyi to give up the punishment. However, he had been too ruthless in the past. He was about to dethrone the crown prince of Ma Chenyi. How could he still talk to him about the dignity of the royal family of the Empire of Qin? Even if Ma Chenyi had to risk being punished by the emperor of the Empire of Qin, he would never let Mo Chunxian escape punishment. What was more, Mo Chunxian put a pile of evidence in his mansion to prove that he had something to do with Luo Qingtong's practice of witchcraft. Just based on these, Ma Chenyi was enough to deal with Mo Chunxian. Those who supported the latter in the royal family of the Empire of Qin could not even let out a fart. I'm teaching my brother how to be a man. What's more, the dignity of the royal family of the Empire of Qin doesn't need to be defended by a villain who framed his brother and plotted to dethrone the crown prince of the Empire of Qin. Ma Chenyi looked at Mo Chunxian with a cold face. Don't think that you can fool me with those words. Mo Chunxian, just tell me whether you want to hit me or not. No. I'll ask someone to hit me for you. Slap. 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 After Ma Chunyi finished speaking, Mo Chunxian had already clenched his teeth and slapped himself hard. His heart was full of resentment. Ma Chunyi, don't think that you'll be fine after escaping this time. When I succeed, I'll kill you. And Luo Qingtong. Chapter 1079. Mo Chenxuan's face was extremely ferocious, and he kept slapping himself. As for the people from the Qingwei group, they were already dumbfounded. Oh my God! They watched Luo Qingtong turn the tables. In just an instant, she managed to reverse the situation that was about to kill her, as well as the Crown Prince and the Grand Principal. When they heard that Mo Chunxian accused Luo Qingtong of using sorcery, they knew that Luo Qingtong couldn't get over it. To put it bluntly, even if Luo Qingtong really didn't practice sorcery, so what? She and Yuan Mo's bet was suspicious, and with Mo Chenxuan's investigation, she didn't have the talent of Soul Seal. Then Luo Qingtong couldn't defend herself. Just look at how the Dean of the Grand Hall and the Crown Prince were implicated. But who knew that Luo Qingtong would clear herself of suspicion in the next instant? This method was simply amazing. Yu Qingwei just wanted to protect Ma Chunyi desperately, but she didn't expect that Luo Qingtong resolved the crisis so easily. Not only that, she also let the elders of the Saint Academy and Mo Chunxian suffer the consequences of their own actions. Seeing that their faces were almost swollen, Yu Qingwei kneeled and apologized. Yu Qingwei's usually calm and elegant eyes widened as she kneeled and apologized. Fortunately, you listened to me and reconciled with them. After holding it in for a long time, she finally squeezed out such a sentence from her mouth. Hearing this, the members of the Qingwei group shuddered. They felt that their own group leader was really too amazing. If senior sister Qingwei didn't come back to reconcile with Luo Qingtong, but to fight with them to the end, then they would probably end up like the elders of the Saint Academy and Mo Chunxian. Thinking of this, the people of Qingwei group suddenly shuddered again. Oh my God, it was too scary. Fortunately, the group of people rejoiced. And those who originally thought that the Dean of the Grand Hall and Ma Chunyi had lost power and defected, looked at the scene in front of them, and their hearts were full of despair and regret. If they knew that the Dean of the Grand Hall, Crown Prince, was fine, they wouldn't have been so eager to switch sides. Wouldn't it be better to wait until things were settled? However, they thought that the sooner they switched sides, the more impressions they would have, so they directly took sides after Mo Chunxian spoke. Now it was too late for regrets. They were brought here by Ma Chunyi and the Grand Hall, almost all of the latter's confidants. So they decided to betray and show their loyalty to Ma Chunxian. Now that he hadn't shown his loyalty, his path had been completely cut off. This was especially true for those teachers who had betrayed the Grand Principal. They couldn't even cry. The elders of the Saint Academy and Crown Prince made the trial results of the Grand Hall were false. After this series of events, the Grand Qin Sacred Academy would be completely removed from the Grand Qin Sacred Academy. From then on, the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin would be dominated by the Dean of the Grand Hall. It would completely become the Dean of the Grand Hall. What did they miss out on? The group of people beat their chests and stamped their feet. It was too late for regrets. Let's go. A good plan turned out like this. Not only did they not get rid of Luo Qingtong and avenge their daughter and apprentice, but the Dean of the Grand Hall had the upper hand. Seeing the elders of the Saint Academy and Mo Chunxian kneeling on the ground and slapping themselves hard, Su Deheng and Shen Qiuyue's faces were extremely ugly, and they directly left. Chapter 1080. Luo Qingtong didn't stay too long in the Elders Guild. After watching Mo Chunxian and the elders of the Saint Academy slap each other for a while, she left the follow-up of the matter to Mo Chunyi and the Grand Dean. She believed that the two of them must know what to do best for them. In order to frame the Grand Dean and Ma Chunyi, Mo Chunxian and the Elders Guild of the Saint Academy dragged them into the water. They used a lot of forces and connections to do something in their mansions. After Ma Chunyi and the Grand Dean escaped this time, they immediately organized people to investigate this matter. They found out all the evidence that Mo Chunxian and the Elders Guild of the Saint Academy had slandered them. By the way, they also destroyed all their forces and connections. Those that should be dealt with were dealt with, and those that should be destroyed were destroyed. For a time, Mo Chinchuan's forces were severely reduced, and he suffered a great loss. His forces and connections were not as good as those of Ma Chenyi. Now he was even more miserable after being messed with like this. He was so angry that he flew into a rage and vomited blood continuously. If it weren't for the last belief that the dragon qi in his body was stronger than that of Ma Chenyi, and that he could definitely defeat him in the future and climb to the top, Mo Chunxian would have been completely disheartened and unable to recover from the setback. With all kinds of dark thoughts in his mind, Mo Chinchuan's face became colder and more malicious. And the Elders Guild of the Saint Academy were all deprived of their status as elders and mentors, and expelled from the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin under the evidence presented by the Grand Dean. It was not over. Because they were suspected of murdering the Crown Prince and distorting the truth, the Elders Guild of the Saint Academy were arrested by the elite troops sent by the royal family of the Empire of Qin, as soon as they left the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. This group of people would be severely punished. For a time, all kinds of collapse and crying sounds were heard. At this time, the Elders Guild of the Saint Academy realized what they had done. They couldn't say how regretful they were. But at this time, there was no medicine for regret. Luo Qingtong, on the other hand, didn't care about these things. She handed these matters over to the Grand Principal and Ma Chenyi to deal with, and didn't care about it anymore. She was currently preparing to give Ma Chenyi the reverse luck seizing technique. A month's time was almost up, and Ma Chenyi's dragon energy was almost fully nourished. When the time limit was up, Luo Qingtong would directly help him reverse the luck seizing technique. At that time, all the dragon qi that Mo Chunxian had absorbed from him over the years would be returned. Before that, Luo Qingtong still had some things to do. Here, this is for you. Luo Qingtong gave Ma Chenyi the information about Mo Chunxian that Yi Qianren had checked for her before. The latter took it and glanced at it. His eyes immediately widened. This. Ma Chenyi was shocked. Where did you get this information? It recorded all the things that Mo Chunxian had done in recent years, as well as the connections and forces of all parties. Both in the open and in the dark, it had everything. Even some of the secrets of the royal family were involved, and even Ma Chenyi didn't know about it. Ma Chenyi was shocked by the details of this information. Then he thought of the relationship between Luo Qingtong and the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, and quickly felt relieved. Did the evil Dr. Ghost Eye give this to you? With that person's status in the black field, and the manpower he could use, he could indeed find these things. Luo Qingtong smiled but didn't say anything. Chapter 1081. He looked at a page in the stack of documents in shock. This. How dare Mo Chunxian lay his hands on my father? Ma Chenyi looked at the information that Mo Chunxian had bewitched the emperor of the Empire of Qin. No wonder his father's attitude towards him had been getting colder and colder over the years. Ma Chenyi had thought that his father was too disappointed in him because he could not make a breakthrough in his cultivation. Coupled with Mo Chinchuan's strong rise, this was the reason. But now it seemed that all this was probably because Mo Chunxian had bewitched the emperor of the Empire of Qin. According to the information, Mo Chunxian had bewitched the emperor of the Empire of Qin by increasing the dosage little by little. Therefore, the effect was not obvious at the beginning. Only when the other party made important decisions, he would be confused and unconsciously lean towards Mo Chunxian. Ma Chenyi thought that over the years, many things and power in his hands had been handed over to Mo Chunxian bit by bit. The latter had the upper hand in front of him, and was unscrupulously arrogant in front of him. And he could only retreat because his cultivation had not been able to make a breakthrough, and the dragon qi in his body was constantly decreasing. It was said that he had been silent for the past few years, and many ministers and forces who followed him were extremely disappointed because of this. But who would have thought that Ma Chenyi did not want to be silent at all? But what could he do when his father was not willing to let him do things? Mo Chinchuan's strength and power improved step by step, and he had all the advantages. So in a few years he had completely caught up with him, who had been the crown prince for more than 10 years. Ma Chengyi had also been disheartened by his father's favoritism. But now it seemed that all this was because Mo Chunxian had bewitched the emperor. And when this drug was taken for a certain time and amount, the person would completely lose his mind and become a puppet of the drug maker. Bastard! How dare he? Ma Chengyi looked at the records in his hands and was furious. At this moment, the blue veins on the forehead of such a gentle and elegant person were all exposed. Ma Chengyi clenched his fists tightly. He had been the crown prince since he was a child, and was doted on by the sage emperor of the Empire of Qin. The relationship between father and son was very good. During the years when Mo Chunxian rose to power, his father became more and more estranged from him. It was not that Ma Chengyi was not sad. Now that he knew that it was all Mo Chunxuan's doing, he wanted to eat him alive. However, he soon had a new question in his heart. Father is powerful, and there are countless masters in the palace. He also has a saint to look after him. Mo Chunxian drugged him. It's too dangerous. Why didn't he drug me? Ma Chengyi was, after all, the heir to the throne of the Empire of Qin. His meticulousness was incomparable to that of an ordinary person. After a moment of excitement, he immediately realized that there was something illogical about this. Anyway, from Mo Chunxuan's point of view, it was much safer and more convenient to attack him than to attack his father. As long as he got rid of him and controlled him, who else in the royal family of the Empire of Qin would be his match? At that time, even if imperial father didn't want to make him the crown prince, it would be impossible. Why did he use such a dangerous and easily discovered method? Because the purpose of the person behind him is your father. Luo Qingtong looked indifferent. She knew that the person behind Mo Chunxian was the heavenly doctor. Chapter 1082. She first used Mo Chunxian to deal with Ma Chengyi. After Mo Chunxian succeeded, she would directly abolish Mo Chunxian through the emperor of the Empire of Qin that she had already controlled. At that time, the Empire of Qin would be under her control. She would be the queen behind the scenes. As for Mo Chunxian, he was just a tool she chose. It was ridiculous that he didn't know it and thought that he was the one who benefited. The person behind the scenes? Hearing Luo Qingtong's words, Ma Chengyi was shocked. However, he soon realized what was going on. Yes, Mo Chunxuan's rise was too strange, and the loss of the dragon qi in his body was also very strange. In addition, now that he had the information of the bewitching drug, Ma Chengyi had already believed Luo Qingtong's words. There must be someone behind Mo Chunxian. And the purpose of the other party was the throne of the Empire of Qin. Mo Chunxian was just a pawn and a tool of the other party. Thinking of this, Ma Chengyi's face suddenly became very serious. Yes, the person behind the scenes. Luo Qingtong's face was indifferent. Do you remember what happened before the Great Chu? Luo Qingtong said. At that time, Prince Ning attacked Empress Dowager Yin Shi. There was another person behind him. Ma Chengyi paid attention to Luo Qingtong. Because of the royal family of the Great Chu. How could he not know about the royal family of the Great Chu? Now hearing Luo Qingtong's words, he immediately reacted. You mean the person behind Mo Chunxian and the person behind Prince Ning of the Great Chu are the same person? He asked. Yes. You should have heard of her name, Heavenly Doctor. Luo Qingtong looked at Ma Chengyi and said, I'll give you the information together with the antidote of the bewitching drug. You can take it to the Emperor of the Empire of Qin. In addition, I can tell you that the Heavenly Doctor has an inseparable relationship with the royal family of the Great Yong. You can check it in this direction. I'm also looking forward to the real identity of this Heavenly Doctor. The smile on Luo Qingtong's lips rose slightly. In the slight curve there was a bit of evil, a bit of frivolity, and a bit of cunning. She had received the news from Yen and the others. The bloodline power of this generation of the royal family of the Great Yong was almost all. Only the emperor of the Great Yong dynasty's royal family could not be compared with the royal family of the other royal dynasties. And Luo's Yongs. And the royal family of the emperor of the Great Yong dynasty, with her with the emperor with her with the emperor. Had used. So. But Luo Qingtong already knew what was going on. If she hadn't guessed wrongly, it wasn't that the bloodline power of those royal family members didn't exist, but it had all been absorbed by Feng Yuan, right? That heavenly doctor and Feng Yuan definitely had a great relationship. Maybe it was her herself. Luo Qingtong was looking forward to the investigation of this matter by the royal family of the Empire of Qin. At that time, when Feng Yuan was dragged out, the scene would definitely be very beautiful. Her plot to seize the throne of the Empire of Qin failed, and she was dealt with. Luo Qingtong felt that if she heard this news, she would have to eat 2 more bowls of rice. With the temperament of the Emperor of the Empire of Qin, if he knew that Feng Yuan was involved with the person who plotted to kill him, even if the great Yong royal family protected Feng Yuan, she would still be in big trouble. Not to mention the price that the great Yong royal family would have to pay. Chapter 1083. Ma Chengyi took the document given by Luo Qingtong and went back. According to the list given in the document, he caught all the spies arranged by Mo Chenxian in the imperial palace of the Empire of Qin. Ma Chengyi knew that Mo Chenxian couldn't turn the tables this time, so he didn't hide anything when he took action. In fact, he couldn't hide it. Most of the spies arranged by Mo Chenxian were close to the Emperor of the Empire of Qin. Thinking about it, only these people could make the Emperor of the Empire of Qin fall into the trap without any warning. And the dosage of the drug was so little that no one could detect it. If it weren't for the document given to him by Luo Qingtong, Ma Chengyi wouldn't have believed the consequences. He was afraid that when they came to their senses, the whole imperial palace of the Empire of Qin would have changed hands. According to the document given by Luo Qingtong, the Emperor of the Empire of Qin had been taking the drug for nearly 5 years. After a few more months, he would completely lose his mind and become a dog under the feet of the other party. It was ridiculous that Mo Chenxian thought that the other party did all these for him, but he didn't know that the other party almost controlled the whole imperial palace of the Empire of Qin with his help. Once the Emperor of the Empire of Qin was controlled by the other party, the imperial palace of the Empire of Qin would suffer a disaster, and the imperial palace of the Empire of Qin would completely change hands and be controlled by the other party. How terrible was this? Ma Chengyi was frightened as he caught all the spies and tied them up in front of the Emperor of the Empire of Qin. The Emperor of Qin was furious because of Ma Chengyi's unscrupulous actions and thought that he was trying to usurp the throne. However, before he could do anything, Ma Chengyi had already appeared in front of him with a group of people. Ma Chengyi told him everything and put the detailed information in front of the Emperor of the Empire of Qin. "Father, these are the results of my investigation. Please have a look. In addition, I've also checked all these people. They are all under the influence of the drug and have completely lost their minds and been controlled by the other party. That's why they drugged you." The Emperor of the Empire of Qin was so strict that ordinary people couldn't get close to him. As for the people serving him, they were almost all his trusted aides and men of sacrifice. Under such circumstances, the other party wanted to poison him without him knowing it. Therefore, he could only make a move on his trusted aides and turn them into puppets first. When Mo Chenyi caught them, he had already used the method taught by Luo Qingtong to check them. These people were all under the influence of the drug, and they couldn't be saved. Even if they were saved by force, they would become complete idiots. The Emperor of the Empire of Qin looked at the information and evidence in front of him furiously. This was especially so when the guards of the imperial palace found bags of medicine that had been used to drug the great Qin sage emperor. The fury on his face reached its peak. Bang! He flicked his sleeves heavily and the energy in his body exploded. In an instant, those who were caught and kneeling on the ground without any change in their expressions and didn't know fear were all shattered into pieces. He shouted angrily in the rain of broken bodies and blood. "Send my order immediately to the Wu Imperial Mansion. Catch that unfilial son and bring him to me. Also, take away his title of King Wu from now on. Lock him up." Chapter 1084. The Saint Emperor of the Empire of Qin was furious to the extreme. At the same time, Mo Chenxian didn't know what had happened in Lord Wu's mansion. Because of the matter with Luo Qingtang, he had suffered extremely heavy losses. He had lost more than half of his forces and connections. But fortunately, he still had some trump cards in his hand that had not been exposed. And his strength was also very strong, which could finally solve some of his urgent needs. And his biggest trump card was the Saint Emperor of the Empire of Qin in the Imperial Palace of the Empire of Qin. Ma Chenyi, you destroyed my forces and connections. Do you really think I can't deal with you in this way? And you Luo Qingtang. Bitch, I'll let you know my power sooner or later. Hiss. Mo Chunxian swore and pulled the wound on his face. That day at the elders' conference, he slapped himself nearly 1,000 times. Even if he was strong, his handsome and gloomy face was swollen like a pig's head. He had not fully recovered after 2 days of recuperation in the mansion. He was so angry that he couldn't maintain his usual coldness and shrewdness at all. Not to mention that he had suffered such heavy losses in the past few days. Just as he secretly gritted his teeth and prepared to ask the Saint Emperor of the Empire of Qin to give Ma Chenyi a difficult task to teach him a lesson and destroy some of his forces and connections, the guard outside suddenly ran in. No. Something bad happened. Your Highness. The guard ran to Mo Chunxian, out of breath. His face was full of horror. Before he could speak, Mo Chunxian, who was already in a bad mood, directly raised his foot and kicked him out with a bang. How dare you? Who allowed you to yell in front of me? Mo Chunxuan's face was extremely cold. He thought that these guards didn't have any respect for him because they saw that his forces were greatly damaged. The guard was kicked to the ground and couldn't speak for a long time. Before Mo Chunxian asked his men to drag him out, there was a sudden cry outside. Seal them all. Following this angry shout, a group of people instantly swept in from the outside door like a whirlwind. Everywhere he passed, there was chaos and chaos. The people of the martial imperial manor immediately went into hiding, not daring to resist. Because those people were wearing the uniform of the personal guards of the Emperor of the Empire of Qin. The fact that they had moved out meant that they were acting on the Sage Emperor's orders. How dare you? What's wrong with you guys? How dare you trespass into my martial imperial manor? Hearing the sound in the room, Mo Chunxian immediately flew out of his main courtyard. When he saw the group of personal guards barging around outside, he immediately shouted angrily. He never thought that the fact that he had drugged the Sage Emperor had been exposed. In his view, if the other party was unable to notice it even after 5 years, there was no way the other party would be able to do so now. Moreover, as more and more people gathered around the Saint Emperor, it would be even easier for him to hide the fact that he had drugged the Saint Emperor. That heavenly doctor's methods were extraordinary. In the past, she was still trembling with fear. Now, it seemed that no one could see through the medicine she gave. So it was definitely not the Sage Emperor who wanted to deal with him. Mo Chunxian wondered if Ma Chenyi had said something in front of the Emperor, which made the Emperor so angry that the Emperor came to arrest him. Thinking of how he had framed Ma Chenyi for finding sorcery for Luo Qingtang, Mo Chunxuan's face turned cold. Chapter 1085. He even dared to bring this up in front of the Emperor. However, he did not expect that the Emperor would side with him. As long as he was willing, not only would he not be able to get justice, he would also be severely reprimanded by the Emperor. He would like to see how unbelievable the Emperor would be then. Thinking of this, Mo Chunxian sneered and walked towards the guards, ready to reprimand them. However, before he could get close, the leader of the Imperial Guards, an expert of the Sage State, glanced at him indifferently and waved his hand. Take him down. Bang. In an instant, Mo Chunxian was pressed to the ground by a group of bodyguards. His head smashed hard on the bluestone tiles below, making a dull thud. Mo Chunxuan's body was stepped on, and he was instantly stunned. How dare you? I'm King Wu of the Empire of Qin. How dare you treat me like this? Let me go. He struggled and shouted angrily. These people must have been instructed by Ma Chenyi to deal with him. What a bastard. When he was in front of the Emperor, he would definitely reprimand them. However, as soon as he spoke, the words of the Imperial Guard's commander made his mind go blank. King Wu of the Empire of Qin? The The Imperial Guard's commander looked at him with disdain. I'm afraid you won't have the chance in this lifetime. Mo Chunxian, you colluded with others to assassinate the Emperor. The Emperor has ordered to arrest you and take away the position of King Wu. If you want to scold us for being presumptuous, you can continue to do so later, because we will be even more presumptuous in the future. Haha. The Imperial Guard's commander suddenly burst into laughter. He waved his hand, and a group of people dragged Mo Chunxian like a dead dog. These Imperial Guards served the Emperor, and they all heard the Emperor's order today. Mo Chunxian would never have the chance to turn the tables. Naturally, they would not be polite to him. Moreover, everyone in the Empire of Qin knew that Mo Chunxian and Ma Chunyi were not on good terms. Now that King Wu had been deposed, the heir to the throne of the Empire of Qin was the crown prince. Under such circumstances, they would naturally try their best to trample on Ma Chunyi and the Saint Emperor. Mo Chunxian was dragged along by these Imperial Guards, and his heart was numb to the extreme. What's going on? How did things turn out like this? His face was filled with anger and disbelief. Shouldn't Ma Chunyi go to the Empire of Qin's sage emperor to complain? Then he would rush over and use the effect of the bewitching drug to make his imperial father favor him and punish Ma Chunyi? How did he end up losing the title of Martial King? And what was the meaning of colluding with others to harm the sage emperor? Could it be that the things she had done to imperial father had been exposed? Impossible. Mo Chunxian thought and shook his head hard. That bewitching drug was not an ordinary drug. It was colorless and odorless, but it was extremely effective. He only used a little bit at a time, so it was impossible to be discovered. Even if they wanted to find out, they wouldn't have waited until now. But what if it was this? Mo Chunxian thought and his heart trembled. When he thought about the consequences of murdering the sage emperor, his legs went weak. Not to mention the fact that the Imperial Guards were dragging him around like a dog. Even if he had to stand up, he wouldn't be able to walk. Mo Chunxuan's confidence came from his control over the sage emperor and the dragon energy in his body. Now, although he had the dragon energy in his body, once the news of murdering the sage emperor came out, how could he still have the chance to become the heir to the throne? It was almost a dead end. Chapter 1086. When Mo Chunxian was captured, a group of people arrived at the holy capital of the Empire of Qin. Is this the holy capital of the Empire of Qin? It doesn't look as prosperous as our subordinate cities. The group of people entered the city. A man with an aquiline nose who was at the front said coldly. His words were full of disdain and arrogance. Haha, Elder Xie must be joking. The holy capital of the Empire of Qin is only the capital city of the Empire of Qin's holy dynasty. The Empire of Qin's holy dynasty occupies less than a quarter of the eastern domain in the true Spill continent. How can its capital city be compared with our celestial palace's subordinate cities? It should be compared with the Blackfield's main city, the 3 islands and 7 lands of the southern domain, the wild city of the western wilderness, and the Sea Emperor's dragon court of the northern domain. This is the sacred capital of the Great Qin Empire. It is already an honor for Elder to be able to set foot here. The people around Elder Xie all agreed one after another. His words were full of flattery. Haha. Elder Xie was in a very good mood when he heard this. He looked at the people around him with admiration and laughed heartily as he walked forward. Let's go. Let's go find Deacon Shun. We need her to take us to the western wilderness this time. We just came out of the hidden world, so there won't be any problems. The group of people immediately walked towards the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin, Seoul Institute Master's residence. Su Deheng and Shen Qiuyue were sitting beside Su Jinyue's bed with a gloomy face. The human-faced ghost sores on the latter's body had just broken out. She was screaming and rolling on the ground crazily, tearing her hair and scratching her body. Her appearance was miserable and painful. Su Deheng and Shen Qiuyue felt sorry for her. They couldn't wait to kill Luo Qingtong in order to alleviate his daughter's pain. That little bitch. Shen Qiuyue's face was extremely cold. She originally thought that Luo Qingtong would definitely suffer at the elders' assembly, But she didn't expect that she would use such a heaven-defying method to turn the situation around. Not only that, but Mo Chunxian and the people of the Elders Guild were also in big trouble. As a result, they didn't have a single reliable helper. Fortunately, she had just received a message from the sect. Elder Xie and the others were about to arrive. Once she begged the other party to speak to Blackfield and let Luo Qingtong cure her daughter's illness, she would definitely make that Luo Qingtong suffer greatly. She didn't care who caused these human-faced ghost sores on her daughter's body. She would put it all on Luo Qingtong's account. Didn't that evil Dr. Guitong think highly of her? If he crippled her and let her experience more pain than Jinyue, the evil Dr. Ghost, I would also be in great pain, right? Humph. Shin Chuyue's face turned cold as she laughed. The noble and graceful face of a noblewoman was extremely cold and stern at this moment. At this moment, there was a noise outside the courtyard. Deacon Shun. Seeing a group of people appear in the courtyard, Shin Chuyue and Su Deheng hurriedly got up, opened the door and walked out. Elder Xie, you are here. Shin Chuyue greeted him excitedly. Su Deheng also hurriedly saluted him. Elder Xie's aura was extremely tyrannical. Su Deheng was already an expert who was close to surpassing the sage realm, but in front of Elder Xie, he couldn't help but feel suffocated. This was the shock caused by the pressure of the expert. Before Su Deheng, only the transcendence of the empire of Qin's holy dynasty gave him this kind of feeling. Chapter 1087. Su Deheng only knew that the hidden world was different from the rest of the true Spill continent. The sects there were extremely powerful, but he didn't think that they would be strong to such a degree. Celestial Palace could casually send out an outer court elder, and they were all at the transcendent saint realm. Then what kind of strength did the inner court deacons and elders have? There was no need to mention the total faction masters. And Celestial Palace wasn't even the strongest sect in the hidden world. No wonder there was a saying among those who knew of the hidden world's existence. If one wasn't a saint, they couldn't enter the hidden world. Unless it was a grand annual selection, no one below the saint realm had the qualifications to enter the hidden world. They didn't even know where the entrance was. And in the entire true Spill continent, how many people could enter the saint realm? Su Deheng himself had been stuck between the sage realm and beyond the sage realm. He had been unable to break through the barrier for a long time. The elder Xie arrogantly nodded. His eyes swept over Su Deheng, completely ignoring him. To the sects of the hidden world, the saint realm powerhouses of the true Spill continent weren't worth their attention. The genius disciples of their sects were far stronger than this. Weak. He was too weak. If this person wasn't Shin Chuyue's husband, and if Shin Chuyue wasn't the great elder of the outer court, he wouldn't even bother looking at him. Elder Xie. After the Elder Xie arrived, Shin Chuyue immediately spoke of her request. Elder Xie, I only have one daughter. Please help me. In the future, I will definitely repay you. Shin Chuyue wiped her tears. Evil Dr. Ghost Pupil? What kind of powerful alchemist could there be in the true Spill continent? The elder Xie coldly snorted, his face full of disdain. He raised his hand and pointed to a disciple beside him, saying, Lu Tong, you go and treat her. Yes. The disciple named Lu Tong nodded and directly pushed open the door. He walked in front of Su Jinyue and began to treat her. However, when he touched Su Jinyue, all the human-faced ghost sores on her body seemed to be awakened. They opened their mouths wide and bit him with sharp screams. Su Jinyue screamed sharply. The awakening of those human-faced ghost sores was as terrible as being devoured by thousands of ghosts. The intense pain caused her to scream uncontrollably. Lu Tong was trying his best to control the human-faced ghost sores in her body. It wasn't as if he had never seen such a dark poison formed from yin qi before. However, what he encountered this time was exceptionally strange. The yin qi in the other party's body seemed to be inexhaustible. Lu Tong tried his best to use his medical skills to expel the yin qi from the man's body. He hoped that the human-faced ghost sores would calm down and then remove them one by one. However, the human-faced ghost sores were not affected at all. Instead, they became more and more aggressive. In the end he had no choice but to retreat. Elder Xie, I can't. This poison is too strange. I can't cure it. He was sweating profusely as he walked to Elder Xie. What? You're the most outstanding disciple of the Outer Sect's Pill Hall. You're actually unable to cure this poison? Elder Xie's face was stunned. He remembered that he had just said that evil Dr. Ghost's pupil was nothing special, and that he didn't need to personally deal with him. His tone was full of contempt. Now he had slapped himself in the face. For a time his face was a bit ugly. Chapter 1088. Shin Qiuyue stepped forward and said, Elder Xie, you don't know, that evil Dr. Gui Tong is a bit strange. She is already an alchemist at such a young age, and her alchemy skills are unfathomable. No one knows what level she has reached. But we heard that when Empress Dowager Yan Shi of the great Chu royal family was looking for a husband, there was a bloodline pill at the wedding, and it was extraordinary. Otherwise, how could she make the Blackfield Mingzun think so highly of her? I didn't make it clear to you before, so you misunderstood. Shin Qiuyue's words gave Elder Xie a way out of the embarrassing situation. Oh. It turns out that this evil Dr. Gui Tong is so powerful. His face softened a bit, and he nodded and said, since she is the person that the Blackfield Mingzun thinks highly of, she is naturally different. As if the person who despised Luo Qingtong just now was not him. In this regard, Shen Qiuyue and others did not even change their faces, and they all smiled and agreed. Then Shen Qiuyue said carefully, then Elder Xie. She meant that she asked him to help her. Elder Xie naturally understood what she meant. Seeing that the other party had spoken well and saved his face, he nodded proudly and said, sure. When we go to the Western Wilderness, I will find time to go to the Black Field to meet Mingzun and plead for you. When Elder Xie said this, he thought that Shen Qiuyue and others would be grateful, but she said awkwardly, this. She wanted to let evil Dr. Gui Tong make a move first, and then deal with Luo Qingtong. What's more, this time they made a move to deal with Luo Qingtong, although the first one was Mo Chenxian. The two of them were not involved from the beginning to the end. But who didn't know the role they played in it? If Luo Qingtong told this to evil Dr. Gui Tong. Thinking like this, Shen Qiuyue suddenly became anxious. She asked, Elder Xie, can you hurry up? Shall we go to the Black Field today, and invite that evil Dr. Ghost Eye over? Emph. Hearing this, Elder Xie's face fell. What was wrong with Shen Qiuyue? So tactless? It was enough that he had agreed to her request, but she still wanted a yard after taking an inch. Today? Putting aside the fact that he might not be able to meet Mingzun today, he had just arrived here today. How could he possibly be tired from the long journey because of her? As Elder Xie thought of this, he suddenly felt very uneasy. Seeing that his complexion was not good, the disciples around him suddenly stood up and said to Shen Qiuyue, Deacon Shen, it's better to be content with what you have. Elder Xie, you've worked hard today. Let's talk about your matter later. Since they had already said this much, Su Deheng and Shen Qiuyue naturally couldn't continue. But thinking that it was very likely that Luo Qingtong had already passed the news to evil Dr. Gui Tong. If they didn't invite evil Dr. Gui Tong over as soon as possible, it was very likely that after the latter received the news, he wouldn't come to treat them anymore. Thinking like this, the two of them suddenly felt anxious. At this moment, a mournful voice rang out. Then, a faint cold air came out of Yu Wenma's room. It was the innate cold disease in his body acting up. Hearing the screams, Elder Xie fiercely frowned and turned to leave, in case Shen Qiuyue and her husband asked him to do something again. Chapter 1089. Squeak squeak. A weak but sharp sound rang out. Then, a black shadow suddenly scuttled out from Elder Xie's sleeve, and ran towards Yu Wenma's room. Gold-seeking hamster. Seeing the black shadow scuttling out, Elder Xie's expression suddenly changed, and he hastily chased after it. However, the gold-seeking hamster's speed was extremely fast. In a flash, it had already scuttled into Yu Wenma's room. The door of the room opened a crack, just enough for the gold-seeking hamster to pass through. Gold-seeking hamster? Hearing Elder Xie's exclamation, Shen Qiuyue's expression also froze. She knew about the gold-seeking hamster. It was the treasure of their celestial palace. The gold-seeking hamster's sense of smell was extremely sensitive, especially when it came to finding treasures. It was simply like a natural radar, the kind that could naturally play back. As long as a treasure was in a place before, it would leave behind a long and dense scent. After that, even if the treasure was no longer there, it would still be able to follow it. Now that it suddenly ran into Yuanma's room, could it be that it discovered some treasure on his body? Thinking of this, Shen Qiuyue hurriedly pulled Su Deheng into the room. Elder Xie and the rest were already inside. Yuanma was lying on the bed, his expression incomparably painful. The cold air in his body would flare up every 2 hours. At that time, the cold air would invade his body, corroding his bones and devouring his heart. It was truly miserable. Every time this happened, his heart would be filled with regret. Why did he despise Luo Qingtong so much in the beginning? Why did he allow his own mother and sister to treat her badly? Why did he allow Tianyu's royal family to ignore her? If it wasn't for this, he would still be the Yuanma who enjoyed the reputation of being a genius in the empire of Qin's sacred academy. He would still be the proud student of the Soul Academy's great teacher. He would still be the genius expert who could possibly reach the peak in the future. It was laughable that for the peak, he despised Luo Qingtong in every possible way, thinking that she wasn't worthy of him. But only now did he realize that without her, he was nothing. He was even worse than a cripple. So what if he was a strong expert? In the end, he still couldn't withstand the onslaught of the innate cold. Thinking of this, Yuanma felt pain and regret in his heart. He knew that Luo Qingtong had deliberately left his strength intact. She wanted him to experience the feeling of being powerless despite having the strength to take revenge on him for despising her and the Luo family, because of his strength in the past. Yuanma rolled on the bed in pain. The black shadow stopped in front of his chest. Creak creak. It was a golden mouse the size of a palm. Its fur was very smooth, soft and round. There was even a tuft of white hair on its head. Creak creak. It was clawing at Yuanma's chest. Its 4 little claws were very happy, and its round little butt was shaking. Elder Xie rushed forward and picked it up. Then he looked at Yuanma's chest. Seeing that there was a faint trace of a pendant, she immediately raised her eyebrows and asked, "Was there something hanging on his body?" Shen Qiuyue looked at Su Deheng. "There was a pendant," Su Deheng hurriedly said. "It was said to be his and Luo Qingtong's engagement token." "Luo Qingtong?" Elder Xie's eyes turned. "Bring me to where she lives." "Okay." Chapter 1090. Especially Shen Qiuyue. She knew the peculiarity of the gold-seeking hamster. Naturally, she knew why Elder Xie went to Luo Qingtong's place. She didn't expect that little bitch to have a treasure that could cause the gold-seeking hamster to react. She was secretly happy, but then she felt some regret. They didn't know about this before. Otherwise, that thing wouldn't have fallen into Luo Qingtong's hands. The gold-seeking hamster's ability was strange. Ordinary treasures couldn't enter its eyes. Since it reacted to the pendant that Yuanma once wore, it meant that the pendant was extraordinary. She didn't know what level of treasure it was. It was really a pity. On the other hand, Elder Xie was very happy. He brought the gold-seeking hamster out because of the incident in the far west wilderness. He didn't expect to have such a pleasant surprise here. Something that could attract the gold-seeking hamster's attention must be a treasure of the Saint Realm or above. Moreover, it wasn't an ordinary treasure. Thinking of this, he suddenly smiled happily. The group arrived at Luo Qingtong's place. "Elder Xie, this is where Luo Qingtong lives." Su Deheng and Elder Xie stood not far from the courtyard of the Heavenly Demon Group's encampment. They raised their hands and pointed at the courtyard in front of them. "It's here." Elder Xie looked at the courtyard and wanted to say something. Suddenly, the gold-seeking hamster in his arms broke free from his hand. Squeak squeak. The little gold-colored hamster with white fur scurried into the courtyard in front of them. Its movements were fierce and fast. It was even faster than when it went to find Yuanma. In the courtyard, Luo Qingtong was sitting in the pavilion and talking to Little Pig. This map of the Saint Monarch's tomb is only a part of the map. It's quite interesting. She fiddled with the jade thumb ring in her hand. After activating the Repair Eye ability, Luo Qingtong could easily see that the small map in the center of the jade thumb ring was incomplete. For maps had to be stacked together to reveal the true appearance of the map. This method was really novel. If Luo Qingtong didn't have this eye ability, she probably wouldn't know the mystery behind it. From the beginning of the Saint Monarch's tomb to the small map in the middle, every step was exquisitely made and concealed. It was really exciting. The tomb of a Saint Realm powerhouse wasn't easy to enter. The things inside wasn't easy to take. I don't know who the other party is, but this method is cunning. Little Pig listened to her words. His lips twitched. That's a Saint Realm powerhouse was too deceptive. It could already imagine the other people who had gotten the map running in excitedly, only to be cheated so miserably that they couldn't even cry out for their mothers. Luo Qingtong chuckled as she listened. Squeak, squeak, squeak. A soft and sharp voice rang out. Answas. Was? What is this? Luo Qingtong instinctively raised her hand to block. Paji. Something soft instantly stuck to her hand. Squeak, squeak, squeak. A small and soft mouse was hugging one of her fingers, squeaking as it moved its four limbs in her hand. Its little butt was swaying from side to side. It was so cute. A hamster. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and looked at the little thing in her hand. She picked it up. Chapter 1091. Why did such a little thing run over to her place? Moreover, how did it enter the holy court of the Empire of Qin? There were actually hamsters as pets in this other world? Why hadn't she heard of it before? Luo Qingtong was just thinking when she suddenly heard Little Pig exclaim in surprise. Gold-seeking hamster? It looked at the little golden-furred hamster in Luo Qingtong's hand that was intimately and unceasingly rubbing against Luo Qingtong's body, and the corners of its mouth twitched as it spoke. This is a gold-seeking hamster. As it spoke, it bounced with its four hooves and jumped in front of the little hamster. Strange, why would it appear here? Little Pig used its little hooves to slap the little hamster in Luo Qingtong's hand. The latter's round and furry body was slapped here and there like a rubber ball, and it instantly became angry. It squeaked as it gave up its love of rubbing against Luo Qingtong, and turned to glare angrily at Little Pig. What are you looking at? You don't like your Grandpa Pig? Little Pig looked at the little gold hamster's angry little eyes, and he immediately extended his little hooves to slap it. Speak quickly, where did you come from? His true body was an existence that crushed all beasts, and such a little hamster actually dared to be disrespectful to him. Little Pig's little hooves slapped even more cheerfully. Squeak, squeak, squeak. That little gold hamster became even more furious. Luo Qingtong watched the interaction between the pig and hamster from the side, and she couldn't help but laugh for a while. When she saw the little gold hamster being slapped by Little Pig to the point its fur stood on end, yet it was unable to struggle free from her hand to fight it with its life on the line, she instantly laughed and swatted away Little Pig's little hooves. Alright, stop bullying it. What's this gold-seeking hamster? Luo Qingtong raised her hand to tease the little gold hamster, and the latter seemed to be especially affectionate towards her. When it saw her finger move over, it instantly squeaked as it raised its pair of little claws and moved over. Little Pig was just about to say something when suddenly, the little gold mouse's body violently twitched at this moment. Luo Qingtong withdrew her fingers and looked at the little golden mouse, struggling violently in her hand. Its little head was shaking left and right, and it looked like it was in great pain. As it cried out, it looked at Luo Qingtong with its big and cute eyes. The pair of round eyes that occupied almost half of its face were filled with attachment and reluctance to part with Luo Qingtong. But at the same time, there seemed to be some kind of force pulling it away. Luo Qingtong looked at it and frowned slightly. At this moment, Little Pig suddenly barked. Not good. Looking at the little golden mouse's pained appearance, it seemed to be struggling to break free from Luo Qingtong's hand and escape. It suddenly shouted, "Stop it! Don't let it run away!" Little Pig's expression was grave. This gold-seeking hamster was raised by someone else, and it's being urged to go back right now. At that time, the existence of the 9 layers exquisite sword and the life and death sword in your body will be exposed. As a fellow beast, Little Pig naturally knew the ability of the gold-seeking hamster. It was an automatic treasure-seeking tool. If this gold-seeking hamster was wild, then so be it. But it was obviously raised by someone. Now that it was being urged to go back, it would definitely expose the fact that Luo Qingtong had many treasures here. Chapter 1092. It was said that a dog's nose was the most sensitive. In fact, this gold-seeking hamster's nose was the most sensitive. However, this gold-seeking hamster was very rare, and ordinary people wouldn't have it. Moreover, they couldn't afford to raise it. Where did it come from? Little Pig didn't have time to think too much and hurriedly had Luo Qingtong stop it. Originally, when Luo Qingtong heard that this little golden hamster was being raised by someone else, she was prepared to let it go. She wouldn't go so far as to snatch someone else's pet. However, when she heard Little Pig's words, her expression suddenly froze. The 9-layer exquisite pagoda and the life and death sword were her biggest secrets. At the same time, they were also her 2 trump cards. They absolutely couldn't be known by others. Although Tianmingzi had said that there wouldn't be any enemies here, Luo Qingtong didn't want these 2 treasures to be exposed and attract unnecessary trouble. She immediately stretched out her hand. The instant the little golden hamster was about to leave her palm, she pressed it back. The young girl's eyes lit up. Layers and layers of blood-red color spread out from the inside. In an instant, she activated an eye technique. Under the gaze of Luo Qingtong's eyes, an array brand instantly appeared on the little golden hamster's body. It was a beast-taming array. Moreover, it was very profound. It couldn't be set up unless one was a spirit array master in the sage realm or above. At this moment, a spiritual power fluctuation was constantly emitted from the array brand, exerting pressure on the little golden hamster's soul, forcing it to listen to the order and immediately return. The little golden hamster obviously didn't want to leave Luo Qingtong. It was a gold-seeking hamster, and naturally yearned for places with treasures. The higher the level of the treasure, the more it liked it. The life and death sword and the 9-layer exquisite pagoda that Luo Qingtong possessed were both rare treasures. Especially the 9-layer exquisite pagoda, which was also the demon-subduing pagoda. The benefits to demonic beasts were obvious. Of course, the little golden hamster didn't want to leave Luo Qingtong. However, that mental energy fluctuation was constantly urging it, causing it to feel extremely painful. At this moment, Luo Qingtong raised her hand and pointed at the core of the array imprint. The mental power in her mind surged out. In an instant, before that mental power fluctuation could react, the array imprint was broken. Creak creak. The little golden mouse was freed in an instant. It jumped onto Luo Qingtong's body and circled around her. It was so happy. From time to time, it would rub its little head against Luo Qingtong and look at her with sparkling eyes, as if it was looking at a big treasure. Outside the courtyard of the Heavenly Demon Group's encampment, Elder Xia's mental power that was controlling the gold-seeking hamster to return was suddenly cut off. His expression instantly changed. This gold-seeking hamster was the treasure of the Celestial Palace. This time, he had brought it out for great use. Nothing must go wrong. Go. Let's go in. That gold-seeking hamster must be with Luo Qingtong. He didn't know what level of treasure the other party had on her that allowed the gold-seeking hamster to break free from his mental power control. If he let the gold-seeking hamster escape, he would be skinned alive when he returned to the sect. Moreover, Luo Qingtong had such a powerful treasure on her. He must get it. Thinking so, Elder Xia immediately lifted his leg, and was about to rush towards the courtyard of the Heavenly Demon Group's encampment. However, just as he made his move, Chapter 1093. Elder Xia No. This is the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. Seeing that Elder Xia was going to make a move on Luo Qingtong, the two of them were wild with joy. However, they couldn't let Elder Xia make a move here. Elder Xia, this Luo Qingtong is highly valued by the Grand Supreme Dean. The two of them said. If you make a move here, you will definitely alarm him. When he activates the defensive formation of the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin, even if you are a Saint Transcendence, you won't be able to do anything in a short time. What if that Luo Qingtong takes the opportunity to run away? Hearing their words, Elder Xie stopped in his tracks. Then what do you two mean? Elder Xie didn't think that Luo Qingtong could escape from his hands. But it was better to be safe than sorry. What's more, now that the gold-seeking hamster had broken free, it must be by her side. If that little girl saw his intention, she might use the gold-seeking hamster to threaten him. At that time, he would really have to hold back. Thinking like this, he suddenly looked at the two of them and said, "In our opinion, we might as well." The two of them said their plan. After discovering that Luo Qingtong had a treasure on her, Su Deheng and Xin Qiuyue planned how to consign Luo Qingtong to eternal damnation. Not only her, but also the Grand Supreme Dean and the others who had been shielding her. Therefore, they stopped Elder Xie and didn't let him make a move here. Otherwise, relying on the defensive formation of the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin, not to mention what would happen to Luo Qingtong, the Grand Supreme Dean and the others would definitely be fine. Not to mention that after the matter became big, it might alarm the Saint Transcendence in the Imperial Palace of the Empire of Qin. At that time, the Grand Supreme Dean and the others would be even more fine. How could Su Deheng and Xin Qiuyue allow such a thing to happen? It was rare for such a good weapon like Elder Xie to come to their door. They must make good use of it. If you want to blame someone, blame Luo Qingtong for being too lucky. He actually had such a treasure in his hands. Humph! They should be thanking her for courting death. As the two of them thought so, they looked at each other with a gloomy expression. Then they laughed coldly together. Good. We'll do as you say. After listening to the two's suggestions, Elder Xie nodded his head and left. In the courtyard, after they stopped the little gold mouse, Luo Qingtong looked at Little Pig and asked, "Everything will be fine after we stop it?" She furrowed her brows and looked at the little golden mouse that was squatting on her shoulder intimately. It completely treated her as a super treasure and loved her passionately, constantly rubbing against her body to sell its cuteness. Needless to say, her appearance was quite lovable. Luo Qingtong thought. She raised her hand and flicked the little guy's forehead. Then she watched it fall to the ground with a thud. It took him a while to get up dizzily. The corner of Little Pig's mouth twitched when he saw her actions. This action is so familiar, isn't it? When I tried to act cute and wanted to follow Luo Qingtong, I was treated like this. Thinking of this, Little Pig resentfully glanced at Luo Qingtong. Is this guy a woman or not? Why is he so cold-hearted? Normally, when people see such a cute little animal, shouldn't they take extra care of it? Why does this woman like to bully them? However, Little Pig didn't know that there was a kind of cuteness that made people want to bully them whenever they saw them. It should be fine. Chapter 1094. It guessed that the gold-seeking hamster must have accidentally run to Luo Qingtong's place. In that case, the other party didn't summon it back, so naturally, they wouldn't know what happened to Luo Qingtong. But, you'd better put it into the 9-layered exquisite pagoda to avoid being tracked by its aura. Also, Little Pig said to her, make a fake treasure aura and bury it somewhere, then let people find it later. Lure them away. Otherwise, they will definitely look for this little thing all over the world. Little Pig glanced at the golden-furred hamster squatting on Luo Qingtong's shoulder. The gold-seeking hamster was a rare treasure beast that ordinary people couldn't afford to raise. Moreover, it was very rare. Now that it disappeared, they would definitely search for it. If someone saw it rushing into Luo Qingtong's courtyard, it would be troublesome. Okay. Luo Qingtong nodded. She also thought so. Just in case, it was better to make a fake treasure to lure them away. Luo Qingtong was very familiar with this matter. She casually took out a trashy ring and covered it with a layer of extremely dense energy waves. This energy fluctuation was the combination of the life and death yin-yang sword and the 9 netherworld phoenix ring. It was guaranteed to be able to fool people. Luo Qingtong took the useless ring and went out. At this moment, a group of uninvited guests came to the imperial palace of the Empire of Qin. Your Majesty. In the imperial study, the sage emperor of the Empire of Qin was flipping through all kinds of things copied from Emo Qinshuan's residence. Emo Qinshuan's ambition was obvious. He even made the dragon robe for his coronation in advance. The sage emperor of the Empire of Qin was so angry that his whole body trembled. He flipped the table and ordered the people in the imperial study to teach Emo Qinshuan a lesson. They must find out who the ambitious heavenly doctor behind him was. Ma Qinyi sat on the seat below, listening to the sage emperor's furious outburst. At this moment, an urgent shout came from outside. Then, a guard of the imperial house suddenly walked in from outside and knelt down in the imperial study. Your Majesty, Elder Xie of Celestial Palace requests an audience. Your Majesty, Elder Xie is a saint. The sage emperor of the Empire of Qin's expression changed when he heard the guard's words. The saint that the other party spoke of was not the saint stage powerhouse that ordinary people spoke of. Instead, he was a transcendent saint. Quickly invite him in. Although he didn't know why the outer sect elder of Celestial Palace wanted to see him, the sacred emperor of the Empire of Qin wouldn't neglect him. As the supreme being of the sacred dynasty, he naturally knew about the hidden world. He also knew that Celestial Palace's influence was not weak. What's more, the person who came was a saint, who was on par with the saint transcendence of the royal family of the Empire of Qin. Immediately, he hurriedly asked someone to invite him in. On the other hand, Ma Qinyi's elegant and handsome face instantly darkened when he heard that someone from Celestial Palace had come to visit. If he remembered correctly, Su Deheng's wife was from Celestial Palace? He heard that she was an outer sect deacon, so she was very respected in the four great sacred dynasties. In the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin, even the Grand Supreme Dean had to show her some respect. Su Deheng's achievements today were mostly thanks to her. Could it be that someone from Celestial Palace came to the Empire of Qin at this time to support her? Thinking of this, Ma Qinyi's original intention to leave when he heard that someone was coming was gone. Chapter 1095. Ma Qinyi sat down again and looked at the group of people who came in expressionlessly. Sure enough, Su Deheng and Shen Qiuyue were among them. The two of them accompanied Elder Xie. When they walked into the imperial study, they saw Mo Chenai sitting on the left at a glance and immediately smiled. Your Highness. After greeting the Holy Emperor, the two looked at Ma Qinyi sarcastically. Especially Su Deheng, who looked at Ma Qinyi with even more sarcasm. The other side helped Luo Qingtong to deal with them. Although the other side really wanted to deal with Mo Qinshian, it was a fact that he helped Luo Qingtong. This time they wanted to make him fall to the bottom. The two's eyes made Ma Qinyi's heart sink. At this moment, Elder Xie's voice sounded. Your Majesty, I came here this time to ask the Holy Emperor of the Empire of Qin to make a decision for us. He tapped his fingers on the table in front of him and said coldly, I came to the holy capital of the Empire of Qin this time, and will leave after a few days. But, he raised his head coldly and said, I went to the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin to see Deacon Shun, a student of the Holy Academy, when I wasn't paying attention, lured away the precious beast of the Celestial Palace, the gold-seeking hamster. The gold-seeking hamster still had the treasures we got along the way. Because the gold-seeking hamster liked those treasures very much, we didn't take them off but let it play with them. Now that the gold-seeking hamster and the treasures are missing, I wanted to break into the Holy Academy and take back the treasures. But I thought that this is the territory of the Empire of Qin, and I can't go too far. So I came to ask the Holy Emperor to give us a perfect justice and explanation. As soon as Elder Xie said this, Ma Qinyi's face changed completely. The other side really came to make trouble. And the one who was looking for trouble was Luo Qingtong. Thinking of the way Su Deheng and Shen Qiuyue looked at him, Ma Qinyi's heart suddenly thumped. How could he not know that the student of the Saint Academy that they were talking about was Luo Qingtong? With this thought, he suddenly stood up and said to the sage emperor of the Empire of Qin, Father, you must investigate this matter thoroughly. It's impossible for Luo Qingtong to do these things. He cupped his hands and said anxiously, Father, Su Deheng and Shin Qiuyue have always been at odds with Luo Qingtong because of Su Jinyue and Yuanma. Previously, when Imperial younger brother falsely accused Luo Qingtong of cheating at the Elders' Assembly, the two of them were behind it. Father, you must not listen to their words. It's not good for her. As soon as Ma Qingyi said this, Su Deheng and Shin Qiuyue sneered. Your Highness is really interesting. Elder Xie hasn't said who that person is. You can't wait to be so sure that it's Luo Qingtong. You can see what kind of person she is. What's more? Su Deheng sneered. It's fine if you say that we slandered Luo Qingtong. Elder Xie is a dignified saint. Why would he slander Luo Qingtong? If it wasn't true, who would make things difficult for a little student? He deliberately emphasized the words little student. Hearing this, the sage emperor of the Empire of Qin nodded and said, That's right. Saint Xie really doesn't have to slander a student. What kind of status did a saint have? How could he make things difficult for a student for no reason? Not to mention telling such a lie. Chapter 1096. The Saint Emperor of the Empire of Qin thought so and disagreed with Ma Qingye's words. He didn't know that it was impossible to avenge Su Deheng and Shin Qiuyue, but it was entirely possible to avenge the treasure that even the gold-seeking hamster was excited about. Come, the Saint Emperor of the Empire of Qin said in a deep voice. Go to the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin and capture the student named Luo Qingtong. Ask her to hand over the treasure of the Celestial Palace and the gold-seeking hamster. Father. The voice of the Saint Emperor of the Empire of Qin sounded. Ma Qingye's voice suddenly sounded. The Saint Emperor of the Empire of Qin didn't even pay attention to him. Ma Qingyi had no choice but to sit there and wait anxiously. He only hoped that Su Deheng and the others were talking nonsense. In this way, after Luo Qingtong was captured and brought to the palace, he could still exonerate her. At that time, with her identity as the Princess of Great Chu, she would be fine. That's right. And the Grand Dean. He must know about this matter, and let him come with the Grand Tutor to support Luo Qingtong. Thinking so, Ma Qingyi immediately winked at the people around him. Immediately, some of his trusted aides left the room, and went to look for the Grand Principal and the others. Su Deheng and Shin Qiuyue had been paying attention to Ma Qingye's movements. Seeing these movements around him, they suddenly sneered. The smile on their lips was very gloomy and proud. Luo Qingtong was definitely doomed this time. The more the Grand Dean and the others stood up for her, the better. At that time, they could catch all of them in one fell swoop and avenge their previous hatred. Let them help Luo Qingtong. At that time, none of them would be able to escape. The group of people was very calm and composed. Luo Qingtong went back to the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin after burying the fake things. In the courtyard, Yu Qingwei was waiting for Luo Qingtong. Su Xiaoxiao and the others were chatting with her. Ever since the incident at the Elder Conference, the relationship between the Qingwei group and the Heavenly Demon group had been completely reconciled. Su Xiaoxiao and the others were grateful to Yu Qingwei for bringing the Qingwei group to help. Although they weren't able to help in the end, they didn't have any prejudice against them. The group of people got along very well. As for Yu Qingwei, Su Xiaoxiao and the others quite liked her. This was especially true for Su Xiaoxiao. As a member of the pharmaceutical department, she liked to interact with Yu Qingwei. The two of them didn't take the usual path when it came to alchemy, so they had a lot to talk about when they were together. But today Yu Qingwei almost didn't speak. Not only that, she kept anxiously asking Luo Qingtong where she was, asking her to come out because she had something urgent to tell her. Boss has gone out. Su Xiaoxiao and the others looked at her and said. Seeing Yu Qingwei's restless appearance, they seemed to have sensed something and immediately said, Senior Sister Qingwei, why are you looking for boss? If there's anything, you can also tell us. The group said, That's right. Senior Sister Qingwei, is there something that you don't want to talk about? Just say it. That's right. Boss just went out and no one knows when she'll be back. If there's something urgent, you can tell us first. Yu Qingwei looked at them and didn't know what to say. She just received news from Ma Chenyi. The latter thought about it and decided to let Luo Qingtong leave first. The Celestial Palace's people came aggressively and were probably prepared. Even if Luo Qingtong really didn't take their treasure, they wouldn't let it go. Chapter 1097. He had Yu Qingwei send a message to Luo Qingtong in order to not attract attention. After all, in the eyes of many people, even if the two of them had let go of their former enmity, their relationship wouldn't be that good. It was just a pretense. If the Grand Principal sent a message or Ma Chenyi sent it himself, Luo Qingtong would probably be stopped before she could leave the Empire of Qin's holy courtyard. However, who would have thought that Luo Qingtong wasn't in the Empire of Qin's holy courtyard at this time? Unable to tell Luo Qingtong this news, Yu Qingwei couldn't sit still. At this time, Luo Qingtong returned. Senior Sister Qingwei? She saw Yu Qingwei surrounded by Su Xiaoxiao and the others in the pavilion, and wanted to ask her what was going on. The latter also anxiously stood up, and wanted to tell her what happened in the Empire of Qin's imperial palace. However, at this time, a clamor suddenly sounded from outside. Luo Qingtong? Where's Luo Qingtong? Who's Luo Qingtong? Yu Qingwei's expression suddenly changed when she heard the series of shouts. Damn it, the Sage Emperor sent people. She hurriedly said to Luo Qingtong. Junior Sister Luo, quickly leave. The Celestial Palace's people found the Sage Emperor, and said you took their treasure. They're going to capture you now. The situation was urgent, so Yu Qingwei couldn't explain to Luo Qingtong what the Celestial Palace was and why the other party went to the Sage Emperor, and said she took their treasure. However, Luo Qingtong immediately understood. The gold-seeking hamster's master came. She narrowed her eyes and said to Little Pig in her mind. Apart from this reason, she couldn't think of any other reason why the other party said she took their treasure. Did they know she had a treasure in her hands? Perhaps the gold-seeking hamster's strange behavior was caused by them. They were nearby at that time? However, the Celestial Palace. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. She suddenly remembered that Su Deheng's wife was an external deacon of a mysterious sect. Could it be this Celestial Palace? As she thought of this, she immediately connected the dots. Just as Yu Qingwei's voice fell, a group of people barged in from outside. Miss Yu is wrong. She's not going anywhere today. After hearing Yu Qingwei's words clearly, the commander of the internal guards who had been ordered to capture Luo Qingtong suddenly gestured towards Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong, by order of the Sage Emperor, you are invited to the Imperial Palace of the Empire of Qin. Please don't make things difficult for us. When the commander of the internal guards left the Imperial Palace, he was warned by Ma Chenyi's men to not disrespect Luo Qingtong. Mo Chenxian was already deposed. If there were no accidents, Ma Chenyi would be the future ruler of the Empire of Qin. Under such circumstances, the commander of the internal guards was still very willing to do the crown prince a favor. Therefore, he didn't immediately attack Luo Qingtong. However, he didn't know that Ma Chenyi's words had actually saved their lives. If they dared to attack Luo Qingtong, they wouldn't end up any better than those people from the Sacred Academy's law enforcement team. Okay, I'll go with you. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes at them, then nodded and walked out with them. Boss. Su Xiaoxiao and the others only just recovered from their shock and almost chased after them. However, this time was different from when they went to the Elders Guild. The soldiers of the Imperial Guards didn't allow them to follow. What should we do? Chapter 1098. Bastards. What the hell is that Celestial Palace? Why are they targeting Boss? Is there something wrong with their brains? Our boss wants to steal their treasure? How shameless. Yuan, who is so angry that he punches the stone pillar next to him. Boss is the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. What treasure doesn't she have? That underworld venerable in the Black Field can't wait to give her the entire Black Field. Moreover, even if the Black Field doesn't have a treasure, Boss won't even bother to steal or snatch it. These people are too much. This is a false accusation. It is a false accusation, Yu Qingwei says. She bites her lip. In the end, She didn't make it in time. She doesn't know if anything will happen to Luo Qingtong. Celestial Palace is a very powerful sect from the hidden world. The one who came this time is their outer sect elder, a saint transcendence expert. He said that Qingtong took his treasure. No one would doubt it. And the Celestial Palace therein is the sect where Su Deheng's wife, Shen Qiuyue, is in. Yuan Hu and the rest instantly understand after hearing Yu Qingwei's words. F***CK. If that's the case, wouldn't it be a piece of cake for them to frame boss? No. Boss is in danger. The group of people immediately react. If that person from Celestial Palace was really called by Shen Qiuyue to deal with Luo Qingtong, then this time, saying that Luo Qingtong took their treasure is completely a conspiracy. No matter whether Luo Qingtong admits it or not, they won't let her off. Not good. The group of people instantly panics. Especially when they think that the outer sect elder from Celestial Palace is actually a saint transcendence expert, they panic even more. Quick. Let's go to the Black Field and inform the people in the Black Field that boss is in danger. As they speak, they stomp their feet and are about to run out. It's useless. Yu Qingwei looked at them and shook her head. Even if Luo Qingtong and the Black Field's evil Dr. Ghost I have a good relationship, the latter may not be able to protect her. That's a transcendent saint we're talking about. Unless we can invite someone like Ming Zun from the Black Field, only then would we be able to fight against him. But why would such a person fight against a transcendent saint for Luo Qingtong? Even if evil Dr. Guitong personally begs him, I'm afraid it's still impossible. Moreover, behind that elder Xie is the Celestial Palace. Yu Qingwei analyzed seriously with Su Xiaoxiao and the others. She wasn't trying to dampen their enthusiasm and confidence. But it was true. Ordinary people simply wouldn't go against a transcendent saint, or even the sect behind the other party for a student like Luo Qingtong. In truth, the sage emperor might have known that Luo Qingtong was innocent. But between a student and a transcendent saint, or even the Celestial Palace, who was more important? Naturally, it was the latter. That's why the sage emperor sent people to capture Luo Qingtong after listening to Elder Xie's side of the story. No, you're wrong. Su Xiaoxiao shook off Yu Qingwei's hand. She looked at her seriously and said word by word, Senior Sister Qingwei, you don't know what will happen if something happens to our boss. Not to mention Elder Xie, Celestial Palace. Even your entire the Empire of Qin Dynasty will have to use blood to wash away the anger of the Black Field. Or it could be said that the anger of the Black Field's Ming Zun. Those who had seen how much Yi Qianxian cared about Luo Qingtong wouldn't doubt that the Black Field's Ming Zun would go to that extent for her. If something happened to Luo Qingtong, the world would be buried with her. Chapter 1099. Yu Qingwei was startled by her words, but before she could react, Su Xiaoxiao had already waved her hand away. Seeing them leave without looking back, Yu Qingwei's mind kept replaying Su Xiaoxiao's words. If something happened to Luo Qingtong, the entire the Empire of Qin Holy Dynasty and Celestial Palace would have to use blood to wash away the Black Field's anger? How much confidence did she have to be able to say something like that? And Su Xiaoxiao and the others were clearly only people from the Empire of Tianyu. How could they say something like that? What's more, Luo Qingtong was only a young girl from a marquee mansion from a low-level country. Even if Yu Qingwei never judged people based on their appearance or status, she couldn't deny the fact that Luo Qingtong came from a lowly background. The only thing Luo Qingtong could rely on was that she knew evil Dr. Guitong and had a relationship with her. But having a relationship didn't mean they would protect her unconditionally. Knowing her didn't mean the Black Field would protect her. Did Su Xiaoxiao and the others think Luo Qingtong was that evil Dr. Guitong? Only that evil Dr. Guitong would be able to obtain the full protection of the Black Field, and the Black Field's underworld venerate in exchange for the destruction of the Celestial Palace and the Empire of Qin Holy Dynasty. Thinking up to here, Yu Qingwei suddenly froze. Luo Qingtong. Evil Dr. Guitong? Information about both sides suddenly flashed through her mind uncontrollably. Luo Qingtong came from a low-level country, Dongli Country. Evil Dr. Guitong rose from a Blackfield branch city in Dongli Country. Evil Dr. Guetong's medical skills were unparalleled, his alchemy skills were superb, and his alchemy skills were top-notch. And when the Qingwei group was dealing with the Heavenly Demon group, a mysterious honorary lead pharmacist suddenly appeared. He obtained the approval of the Grand Master and the Grand Principal of the pharmacist group, defeated her in a challenge, and refined a real pill elixir. The elixir aura contained within the elixir liquid was incomparably dense, and it was no different from a real elixir. Thinking of this, Yu Qingwei immediately sucked in a deep breath. The things that he had never thought of before were instantly dispelled by Su Xiaoxiao's words. Luo Qingtong was the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. This was the evil Dr. Ghost pupil who had caused the Blackfields deep revered to fall in love with her and protect her wholeheartedly. He had even said that no one in the entire True Spill continent would be able to harm her. That was why evil Dr. Guetong was so protective of the Luo clan. That was why he destroyed Tianyu's royal family for the Luo clan. It was only when the Qingwei group was dealing with the Heavenly Demon group that the honorary lead disciple of the Mystic Pharmacy suddenly appeared. If it was the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, then it was no wonder that the Medicine Institute's great teacher and grand principal would make her the honorary chief without any hesitation. Not to mention, no one could surpass her position in the Medicine Institute. How could he surpass it? The other party was already an alchemist. Moreover, his alchemy skills had reached the acme of perfection. Even those old monsters did not dare to say that they could compare to him. As Yu Qingwei thought of this, she realized just how great this matter was. If Luo Qingtong really was the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, then the Celestial Palace and the Empire of Qin's holy dynasty would be in deep trouble. Thinking of the anger of the Blackfields deep revered, she fiercely shivered. The Empire of Qin's Imperial Palace. Luo Qingtong was accompanied by the Imperial Palace's internal guards who had come to invite her into the grand discussion hall. In order to express the importance of this matter, the Empire of Qin's Holy Emperor had changed the location of the interrogation from the Imperial Study to the Grand Discussion Hall. The Imperial Palace's inner courtyard was heavily guarded. Wherever they passed, sabers, spears, swords, and halberds would shoot out cold light in all directions. Chapter 1100. Luo Qingtong, you didn't think you'd have such a day, did you? The two men's expressions were cold as they mouthed Luo Qingtong. Their murderous intent towards Luo Qingtong was evident as they opened and closed their mouths. Today, they wanted Luo Qingtong to never be able to walk out of this door. As for Elder Xie, a trace of amazement flashed through his eyes as he looked at the stunning young girl who walked in. He didn't think that this student, whom Su Deheng and Shin Qiuyue hated to the bone, would be so stunning. If she could obediently hand over the treasures on her body, it wasn't like he couldn't keep her and play with her by his side. Presumably, she would be very happy to do so. After all, this was an honor that many people couldn't even ask for. Seeing his gaze, the little pig in Luo Qingtong's arm snorted and said, "Hey woman, that Elder Xie seems to have taken a fancy to you. Oh my God." With a face full of wrinkles, he still wants to learn from others and eat young grass. Hearing its words, Luo Qingtong glanced indifferently at Elder Xie and didn't say anything. On the other side, Ma Chenyi had already stood up. Qingtong, Grand Tutor Jiang, and the Grand Principal stood beside him. It was obvious that the two of them had been called over by Ma Chenyi. Luo Qingtong had just learned about Ma Chenyi's painstaking efforts from Yu Qingwei, and immediately nodded towards him. It was said that true hearts were revealed in adversity. It was indeed so. When the Celestial Palace made things difficult for her, not only did Ma Chenyi not retreat, but he did his best to help her. It could be said that he didn't let her down for her previous help. She really didn't misjudge him. Qingtong. Ma Chenyi's heart was anxious. He didn't think that Luo Qingtong would appear here. Didn't he ask Yu Qingwei to inform her to leave? Could it be that something went wrong? When the Grand Principal saw Luo Qingtong's arrival, he frowned fiercely and transmitted a message to her. "Luo girl, this matter is not easy to handle. That Elder Xie has the strength of a Saint Transcendence, and is considered a powerhouse among the ordinary Saint Transcendents. I think you'd better reveal your identity so that they won't dare to touch you." His expression was dignified. To the Grand Principal naturally hoped that Luo Qingtong's identity wouldn't be exposed so quickly. This way, they would have one more trump card in the Saint Court. But this situation was different. The Celestial Palace was be considered to be a big sect in the hidden world. As elders SSSSSSB, TSSSS, SSSSSST, SSS, SSSSS have a S. After all, he wasn't a true saint transcendence. His was only slightly above the saint realms. In addition, he had been injured these years, which delayed his advancement. If nothing unexpected happened, his would have been. There was absolutely no possibility of a breakthrough. Under such circumstances, even if he tried his best, he wouldn't be able to stop the other party. Luo Qingtong was invited by him to the Empire of Qin's Saint Court. If something happened here, not to mention Mingzun's anger, even he would feel sorry for Luo Qingtong. No need, Grand Principal. You don't have to say any more. It's too late. Chapter 1101. If the people from Celestial Palace had come specifically to avenge Su Deheng and Shen Qiuyue, it would be fine. If she revealed her identity, they would absolutely not dare to make a move. But they had come for the treasures on her body. Even if she revealed her identity, the other party would definitely force her to hand over the little golden mouse. But that gold-seeking mouse had already known the secret of the treasures on her body. In any case, Luo Qingtong would not return it to the people from Celestial Palace. Otherwise, under the investigation of the secret method, the other party would definitely discover the secret of the life and death yin-yang sword, and the 9-layered exquisite pagoda. Under such circumstances, the enmity between Luo Qingtong and Elder Xie was set. Rather than letting them get the little golden mouse and leave in fear, which would attract the powerful people from Celestial Palace, it was better to continue to hide her identity and deal with their moves as they came. The best result would be to make Elder Xie and his party stay here completely, so that the people from Celestial Palace would not know what had happened. In this way, the secret of the treasures on her body would not be exposed. Luo Qingtong thought so and narrowed her eyes. She already had a plan in mind, but the specific implementation was still a little difficult. But now she had no other choice. Luo Qingtong. The Grand Dean did not understand Luo Qingtong's words, and did not know what she meant by, "It's too late." When he wanted to ask for more details, Shen Qiuyue on the other side could not help but launch an attack. Previously, she had let this woman, who had dealt with her daughter and humiliated her husband, escape. This time, she would like to see how she could escape. Shen Qiuyue's eyes glinted coldly. She suddenly stood up with a stern shout. "You abducted my sex-treasured beast and stole my sex treasures. Quickly hand over all those things and return my sex-treasured beast. Otherwise, don't blame us for being rude to you." Su Deheng was also here. While pretending to comfort Shen Qiuyue, he said to Luo Qingtong with a strong sense of righteousness, "Luo Qingtong, I know you have a grudge with my family. You hate my disciple Yuanma for abandoning you. Jinyue is not sensible. Because she loves Mo. She offended you many times. But in any case, you can't do such a disgraceful thing to the Celestial Academy when my wife returns home." He raised his voice. "Gold-seeking mouse is the sex-treasured beast of the Celestial Palace. Not everyone can get it. Even if you get it, you can't afford it. What's more, there are all kinds of treasures from Celestial Palace. The Empire of," he said Grand Dean to the Celestial Academy and Holy Dynasty of the Empire, Dynasty of the Empire. "Once you provoke the Celestial Palace, I don't know how many lives you have to pay for it. Holy Emperor, please judge clearly." Su Deheng suddenly turned around and bowed to the Holy Emperor of the Empire of Qin, who was sitting at the top of the hall. Every word he said was closely related to the fact that Luo Qingtong had a grudge against them. So she deliberately lured away the gold-seeking mouse, and caused the Celestial Palace's treasures to be stolen. His words were reasonable, and the people in the hall began to believe him. Even Ma Chenyi couldn't help but glance at Luo Qingtong. He wondered if Su Deheng had some conspiracy that Luo Qingtong found out, So she deliberately lured away the gold-seeking mouse to vent her anger. But he didn't expect that the gold-seeking mouse was the sex-treasured beast of the celestial palace, and there were treasures of the celestial palace on it. So no. Chapter 1102. Let's not talk about whether or not Luo Qingtong was such a careless person. She was discovered by Su Deheng and the others when she lured away the gold-seeking hamster. Let's say that the gold-seeking hamster and the sex treasures were stolen together. Given the grudge between Su Deheng and Luo Qingtong, as well as Elder Xie's strength, how could they not snatch those things back on the spot? Thinking like this, Ma Chenye's heart suddenly trembled. He immediately realized that it wasn't that Elder Xie and the others didn't want to snatch it, but that they couldn't. It was true that the gold-seeking hamster had gone missing, and it was most likely on Luo Qingtong's body. However, those stolen treasures were most likely all fake. The gold-seeking hamster had gone missing because it had discovered the treasures on Luo Qingtong's body. Elder Xie and the others had deliberately come to complain. They wanted to borrow Imperial Father's hand to force Luo Qingtong to take out the treasures on her body. After all, the Holy Court of the Empire of Qin had a protective formation. Luo Qingtong was among them. If Elder Xie and the others made a move and the Grand Dean defended Luo Qingtong, there was still a possibility that Luo Qingtong would escape. However, it was different in this imperial palace. Luo Qingtong had no one to rely on. As Ma Chenye thought this, his heart suddenly couldn't help but sink. Luo Qingtong was in danger. Luo Qingtong, what do you have to say? After Su Deheng finished speaking, the Holy Emperor of the Empire of Qin, who was sitting on the main seat, raised his head and looked at the young girl standing on the other side of the main hall. That brilliant temperament made him faintly knit his brows when he saw it. It was no wonder that his Yi was so worried about such a peerless beauty. He heard that the other party's strength in the Holy Court of the Empire of Qin wasn't weak, and her talent was astonishing. However, all of this was nothing compared to the Celestial Palace. Yi, paying too much attention to her was not a good thing. The Holy Emperor of the Empire of Qin didn't know that his bewitching medicine had been cured and Mo Qinshuan's plot had been exposed because of Luo Qingtong. He looked at Luo Qingtong with some displeasure and asked with a cold and indifferent face, "If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext." Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and said indifferently, "Since Su Deheng and the rest are so certain, then let them show the evidence. Otherwise, I believe that the sage emperor will uphold justice for me." How could she not see the displeasure in the eyes of the Holy Emperor of the Empire of Qin? But she didn't care. She did not want to rely on the people of the Great Qin Sacred Dynasty to escape. Elder Xie's strength was too strong, and there was the Celestial Palace behind him. The people of the Empire of Qin would never want to go against him. Ma Chenye and the Grand Dean were protecting her. Even if she revealed her identity as the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, no one would believe it. They would only think that they said it deliberately to protect her. So this time, Luo Qingtong could only rely on herself. Humph. Of course we have evidence. However, Luo Qingtong, if we show the evidence, you and your accomplice will be punished severely and be at our disposal. Shin Qiuyue said and glanced coldly at the Grand Dean beside Luo Qingtong. Obviously, the accomplice she was talking about was the Grand Dean. That's right. If it weren't for someone helping you, how could you, a little student, lure away the gold-seeking hamsters and take away so many treasures of Elder Xie? Grand Dean, although I know that you are very indulgent and protective of Luo Qingtong, your way of doing things is really disappointing. Chapter 1103. Su Deheng said with a pained expression. Luo Qingtong looked at him and Shin Qiuyue, then thought of Su Jinyue. She suddenly felt that this family was full of drama. You guys. The Grand Supreme Dean was even more furious. He was indeed against Su Deheng becoming the great teacher of the Soul Institute. He felt that Su Deheng's strength and ability weren't enough for this role. He didn't have any selfish motives. But he didn't expect that he would be viciously blackened today. No wonder they came to the Saint Emperor to complain. He was afraid that they had already made up their mind to not only deal with Luo Qingtang, but also deal with him, right? What a good plan to kill two birds with one stone. The Grand Supreme Dean was so angry that he stomped his feet. He wished he could rush over and kill Su Deheng and the rest, then pull Luo Qingtang away. But in front of the Saint Emperor, he didn't have the right to be presumptuous. Moreover, Su Deheng and the rest had Elder Xie, a transcendent sage, by their side. Just as the Grand Supreme Dean was panting in anger, Luo Qingtang's voice rang out. Okay. As long as you can find evidence, I will plead guilty to the Grand Supreme Dean, and let you punish me. But if you can't produce evidence, you have to let us go. Luo Qingtang narrowed her eyes and looked at Su Deheng and the rest. Okay. Shen Qiuyue immediately agreed. She sneered at Luo Qingtang, her heart filled with pride and coldness. She was waiting for Luo Qingtang to say this. At that time, she would get rid of her and the Grand Supreme Dean. This woman probably didn't know, right? The gold-seeking hamster was their celestial palace's precious beast. Naturally, there was a way to raise and control it. Previously, they didn't know what kind of treasure Luo Qingtang had on her that made the gold-seeking hamster so excited that it broke free from Elder Xie's spiritual control. But now that both sides were within reach of each other, no matter how tightly Luo Qingtang hid herself, as long as Elder Xie released his spiritual power, the gold-seeking hamster would obediently listen to his orders. When he crawled out of Luo Qingtang's body, the scene would be wonderful. At that time, Luo Qingtang would not be able to defend herself. With that thought in mind, she looked at Elder Xie proudly and said, Elder, please make your move. Elder, please take action. Su Deheng, who was beside her, also said respectfully and excitedly. Without the Grand Principal, the Elders Association would be disbanded. When he returned to the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin, he could easily become the principal with the help of Shen Qiuyue. At that time, they would properly deal with the Crown Prince of the Empire of Qin. The two of them sneered. That Elder Xie slowly raised his head and looked at Luo Qingtang. With an unfathomable expression, he said, You really don't want to plead guilty? He had the demeanor of an expert. As long as you hand over the gold-seeking hamster and those treasures, this elder won't look into your crime of theft. I'll even train you by my side. How about it? He looked at Luo Qingtang's devastatingly beautiful face and said covetously. The young girl's face was absolutely beautiful and her temperament was bewitching. She had an awe-inspiring domineering aura and a calm grace. She was truly a top grade. He couldn't bear to punish this kind of girl. As long as she was willing to hand over the treasures in her hands and the gold-seeking hamster, he promised to treat her well. As for the grudges between Su Deheng and Shen Qiuyue and Luo Qingtang, what did it have to do with him? As soon as Elder Xie's words left his mouth, Luo Qingtang smiled. Elder Xie wants to train me by your side. Chapter 1104. Unfortunately, I'd rather see Elder Xie being taken in and trained by someone. Why don't we raise the stakes? As Luo Qingtang spoke, the smile on her lips was cold and evil as she looked in Elder Xie's direction. In an instant, the latter was furious. Bitch. I gave you face, but you don't want it. Elder Xie's face was full of anger. The training he was talking about was naturally not an ordinary training. Luo Qingtang used his own words to reply to him, instantly making him think of that kind of unbearable scene, and his face darkened. Since you won't shed tears until you see the coffin, then I'll fulfill your wish. He originally thought that the other party was not bad-looking. If she was willing to submit to him, the taste of pleasure under his body would definitely be very good. But he didn't think that the other party would be so unappreciative. Since that was the case, there was no need for him to have any tender feelings for the fairer sex. Once the other party was convicted, wouldn't she still fall into his hands? At that time, he would definitely let her know the consequences of what she had just said. As Elder Xie thought of this, he suddenly snorted coldly. He raised his hand and began to use the Celestial Palace's secret technique to control the gold-seeking hamsters. That was the beast-taming technique that the Celestial Palace had specially invited the most powerful array master in the hidden world to create for the gold-seeking hamsters in their sect. Under the activation of the beast-taming brand, as long as he poured his mental strength into it, he would be able to control the other party. This was also specially drawn to prevent the gold-seeking hamsters from being unwilling to return after finding an excellent treasure, or from wanting to escape. The control brand was divided into two types, the main array and the sub-array. When Elder Xie came out, he drew the sub-array in the palm of his hand. The method to control the main array was still in the sect, and was controlled by the sect leader. Therefore, when the gold-seeking hamsters broke free from his mental strength control, he didn't think too much about it. After all, the control of the sub-array was not as strong as the main array, so it wasn't impossible for it to break free. But that would definitely happen when the gold-seeking hamsters found a huge treasure. That kind of treasure would definitely be able to increase the strength of the Celestial Palace sect by more than 10 times. Therefore, Elder Xie could not wait to deal with Luo Qingtong. He did not even care about the dignity of a transcendent saint and an outer elder of Celestial Palace, all for the sake of obtaining the treasures on the girl's body. It was definitely a rare treasure that could allow his strength to soar and contribute greatly to the sect. Just thinking about it made Elder Xie's body tremble with excitement. Quick! He pointed out with his finger. Gold-seeking hamster. Come out! In order to prevent the gold-seeking hamster from being attracted by the aura of the treasure on Luo Qingtong's body, and once again resisting his summoning and control like before, Elder Xie exerted a lot of effort in pointing this finger. Almost all of the power in his body was poured into that point, and in an instant, it entered the subformation. However, it was quiet all around. No gold-seeking hamster jumped out of Luo Qingtong's body. Creak creak. In Luo Qingtong's sea of consciousness, the 9-layered exquisite pagoda, the little gold-seeking hamster was happily jumping around in the space of the first floor. It looked like it wasn't affected in the slightest. Creak creak. It raised its hand to fiddle with the huge cocoon of light that Snowball had transformed into. After the latter moved a bit, it hurriedly ran away with its 4 paws. It looked like it was having a lot of fun. Chapter 1105. How is this possible? He repeatedly raised his hand in disbelief. Quick! 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 Gold-seeking hamster, come out! He pointed his finger one after another, using all his strength, but there was still no movement on Luo Qingtong's body. Elder Xie was as tired as a dog, half leaning on the armrest of the chair behind him, gasping for breath. Even with his strength, he had almost exhausted all of his mental strength by activating so many of the formations in succession. He was so angry that he almost cut off his own hand. How is this possible? His face was ferocious as he supported himself on the armrest behind him, glaring at Luo Qingtong and saying, "The beast-controlling array given by the sect is absolutely not a problem. Slut, did you do something to it?" Elder Xie didn't believe that he couldn't summon the gold-seeking hamster. That sect's treasure beast must be on Luo Qingtong's body. There was absolutely no doubt about it. But how could he not summon it? Compared to getting the treasure, Elder Xie was more worried that he would lose the gold-seeking hamster. Everyone knew the difference between a fish and a fisherman. As long as there was that gold-seeking hamster, they could get the best treasure. But without that gold-seeking hamster, then even the best treasure couldn't make up for this loss. Slut, what did you do? Elder Xie looked at Luo Qingtong with a murderous gaze. At this time, he couldn't care less about being attracted by her beauty. If there was a problem with that gold-seeking hamster, then even if he got the treasure on Luo Qingtong's body, he would still die when he returned to the sect. Elder Xie, you're joking. Luo Qingtong looked at him indifferently and raised her eyebrows. Didn't you say that you have evidence, so you want to prove that I took your treasure and that gold-seeking hamster? Now that you can't take out the evidence, you say that I did something. If I could do something in front of a transcendent saint like you, then now, it wouldn't be your turn to interrogate me. Luo Qingtong said coldly. Her words caused the people around her to nod slightly. They could clearly see that Luo Qingtong didn't do anything. On the other hand, that Elder Xie clearly said that he would show evidence. In the end, after putting on an act, he said that Luo Qingtong had done something. That was why he couldn't produce any evidence. Was this king joke? The young girl was only a martial emperor. Yet she was able to play tricks in front of him. A transcendent saint. How could it make him so tired that he was sweating profusely, gasping for breath when he spoke, and his tongue was hanging out like a dog? This was simply an insult to their intelligence. This was too much of an act. He was really treating them like fools. In fact, everyone present could more or less guess that Elder Xie and the others had deliberately come to find trouble with Luo Qingtong. But to do it so obviously, he really did not put them in his eyes. This was especially true for the sage emperor of the Empire of Qin. His face instantly turned as black as coal. He was afraid of the Celestial Palace, so he was willing to give Elder Xie and the others face. But this didn't mean that he was afraid of them. Elder Xie was just an outer sect elder of the Celestial Palace. It wasn't like the imperial family of the Empire of Qin didn't have any transcendent saints. You're tuning in to the Limei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.